real world that walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man Bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up the ante, making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight dope says. Mike building batteries that power a ship. Victor comes and talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma bolts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tones of the prongs. Burning, breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the dope big old man Bills.
Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds. What's up, Joe?
What's up? Dope. What's up, everybody?
Oh man, we're gonna have a great show today. Hey, real quick before we start, I just want to give a shout out to Dispatch out there. Dispatch came over last week, man, and hooked me up with some pizza, bro, when I was feeling down and out. Dude, great guy in the chat. Even better neighbor, but even better than that, he's a great friend, dude. And him and I have been friends for a very long time. Shout out Dispatch, brother. I appreciated it.
Right on, dude. Paul's a good dude. He really is.
Right on, man. All right, let's get this thing going out here. Joe, we're talking about plasma. We're talking about like intelligent plasma. Is plasma coherent? Is it part of us?
Is it set?
Living?
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, right? This is something that we talked about at various points in the past, but I think that it just raises like kind of a lot of open-ended questions. And I think that's super interesting, right? So we have this life force within us. You know, something makes us alive. There's a pairing of matter and energy that exists. And, you know, without going into the deep of it so soon, right? I feel that it's a plasmatic force. In fact, we know it's a plasmatic force. You know, that exists, and it's contained within the living body. And, you know, here we are doing plasma experiments, and we can see the plasma, we can condense the plasma, we can organize the plasma. The plasma acts in a certain way in order to kind of achieve its ends, so to speak, right? In a lot of applications. And it moves about and kind of does its own thing. And what kind of raises the question is that, is the plasma in our plasma experiments, does that have a degree of sentience to it? And I think that is sort of the real wild card here, because the thing is that we know that the conditions of the plasma have to be set and in order and in proper proportions with everything in its environment. Okay, in order for it to create in the first place, then to organize, and then to condense and organize in more dense spaces, right? All these conditions have to be set and proper in order for that to occur. But once it does, what you see is something that resembles, you know, light. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So if you look at the voltage over a wire, I always look at it like a DNA sequence. There's like little balls that goes one to the other, to the other, to the other, with the connecting in between them, and then they space in and out like this. And usually the information's held in between them. That's where people like Bedini came out and said that's where the information hides, inside the packets. So if you think about that in the way of sentience, then yeah, if you consider our DNA having plasma in order to create sentience in our body, and then we're creating plasma in the lab, I could see the direct correlation. My only thing with it is, how long does it have to be there before it spreads out as that?
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, the DNA analogy that you're giving is quite interesting, because, you know, how that pulls back together is it's sort of like a DNA sequence, or a genetic sequence in general. It's sort of like a song. You know, it follows certain codes and rules and patterns and rhythms of different sequences. And then it's sort of like the variation from like, like for instance, a certain sequence would determine, what you are, right? But
Mhm.
then the variables in that sequence, you know, determine who you are. So, it becomes this interesting situation where it's like as human beings, we're all the same song, but certain notes are just in a different, in different harmonic. It's the same note in a different harmonic. And that's where it sort of becomes interesting to start to think about.
Well, I always believe that we have some kind of memory that goes on in our DNA. And I say it this way: we talk about structured water all the time, right? Water contains memory in it. Water is like a somewhat of a plasma state in the way that it's just a giant liquid form, where plasma is more of a gaseous form, right? That's going bordering on liquid. I look at it as the memory stays within the body, so then it transfers over in living form from the man to the woman, right? And then the woman changes the DNA that's coming in to alter it to form the new being that's going to be, right? So you're getting different values that go on inside of it. And anything that you add during the sequencing of it that goes on with the woman at that point in time changes that personality of that person immensely. That's why they say play some Mozart when she's pregnant. You know what I mean? Do things that are fundamentally important when she's pregnant. You know what I mean? Get those intelligence levels up of the child so they can start to understand coding already as they come up. I think that's kind of the transfer process in the plasma of the sentience inside of our body.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it like, okay, so if that's there, then the universe plasma has been here for a long time.
Right.
And so now let's look at see what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, so right, it's like it's all the same.
Yeah.
Once again, and I'm right, and I mean, you're describing it in the viewpoint that I like to think of it in, which isn't necessarily the most accepted of theories, I would suppose, but that the life force energy itself, the actual plasmatic life spark, the sentient being, comes from the male, right? And like you said, the female is the one that takes all the parts, her parts, and out and a man's parts, and puts those parts together in their final sequence, right? And I love that you brought that up. But what the reason I'm saying it's all the same, right, is like they describe in dogmatic and religious uh texts and everything that during creation, in Genesis, that realistically, God, gave his energy into man to animate them, and that's what was passed from, we, and often we perceive God as a man, and people don't like that, and because the truth is that there's one part of God that's a man, but the other side is the female organization side, right? Because you have God the energy and God the matter that have to come into coalescence with one another in order for any of it to exist. To digress, though, you know, as a man, and under the theory that we're kind of saying, you're passing your plasmatic life force as a man, and giving that as new life, so you're giving a piece of your own plasmatic energy into that. And then in esoteric practices as well, like, or just like some cult stuff, there's this whole idea that there's a lot of life force energy that's held within, your spud.
Yeah.
So you keep your spud in there for as long as possible, so you retain that life force energy, and that actually gives you a higher degree of plasmatic presence, which allows for a deeper, more thorough connection, to the greater whole. So it's all
Well,
pretty interesting stuff.
what's interesting, so let's draw a parallel to plasma when we think about it in space, right? So what happens is light will come in and hit an object, right? And as soon as it hits the object, it goes through layering and it focuses the light. Well, because there's light to the center, and then all of a sudden from the center, it builds out into this thing. It presets the outside condition, right? And it starts building from the inside, but it doesn't just build one thing. It starts to build what you would think would be like little circles, right? Going on. But then we look at the egg and the way that it works. It's a set outside. It goes in there. The sperm goes to the center. It starts to build, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way around it. It's mimicking the same structure that we're seeing in space. So now you're looking at it going, okay, so you're talking about the same geometry, the same structure, the same pressures, you know what I mean, just at a different scale and energy. But then you start to look at it and go, okay, we are made of light, which means when God gave us our soul, he gave us the light. So the light's transferred from person to person all the way down through genetic memory and everything else. That's why you have weird quirks that are like your parents that you don't necessarily pick up on until later in life. This is also like the space, and you start thinking about plasma out there. It's a reoccurring pattern. It keeps happening again and again. Solar systems are all built the same way. Okay, there's differences in sizes of suns, different energy levels, but they're all built basically the same way. It's an unpacking code. It is that simple. But then again, what does it do? See, this is the thing. It builds out an equilibrium. So anything that becomes a problem, it compensates and fixes a problem. But then again, our body does the same thing. If you talk about, say, a nuclear explosion over in Russia, and then you have wolves that are there, right? Within 3 generations, those wolves will be able to not only live there, but thrive in that environment because their body is changing genetically in order to adapt to the environment. But then again, plasma works the same way. If we change a condition in plasma in space or anywhere else, it adapts to the condition and changes to it. And it adds it as a feature to everything. So the parallels are right on, right?
Yep. I mean, there's definitely, you know, an evolution which occurs, which is interesting because, you know, I think of that a lot of, again, religious sects would say that, well, evolution isn't really a thing. You know, God made everything the way that it is, and you know, why would it have to change if it was perfect in the first place? You know, but what tends to be interesting, okay, is you know, Darwin when he came out with you know, evolution in the first place, which was over 100 years ago at this point, right? At first, you know, and it's still common belief, right? These evolutions take you know, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, you know, to make significant changes of an animal or person or whatever have you. But what we're starting to see now is that there's countless instances of rapid evolution that occurs over the course of decades. You know, and you can end up with an entirely different species of animal with very few shared characteristics with its original form over the course of, you know, 25 to 50 years. And one thing that I saw on that recently was actually the coyotes. You know, that coyotes didn't originally live on the East Coast, that we had wolves here, but we hunted the wolves out of, you know, into extinction more or less. That filled you know, created a big void in the, you know, the ecological, you know, niches, you know, for predators, and then that therefore the coyotes pressed eastward. But then in doing so, they came across some of the few remaining wolves that weren't killed off. They started breeding with the remaining wolves. Then they ended up crossing with some dogs. They started moving into harsher environments. And then next thing you know, within less than 100 years, you basically have an entirely new species of animal that bears little resemblance to either the coyote that it came from, the wolf that made the changes, or the dog that contributed. You know, it had none of the characteristics of any of them. And that's because it took those genetic traits and then exploited them based on the environment, hashed out all the ones that didn't work, and what became is just something new. So pretty interesting stuff how that goes so fast.
So check this out. So let's bring in the plasma hard now. When we sit there and deal with the Tesla coil and plasma, right? and you're putting out a field. Just understand energy doesn't cancel ever, it converts. So you have to understand that. As soon as you sit in the field of it, it immediately makes you sick or it feels really good. You're immediately playing with the plasma field around your body.
Oh,
You see, so it goes into your nerve endings and stuff like that. That's why when you talk about robots and AI versus humans, humans have the advantage because we're chemically based. And those receptors right there give out everything that we need to make decisions and how it works, right? But that is all controlled by the plasma that goes on in the neurons in your brain. Okay. And so if you bring in an outside force like a Tesla coil, it then goes to the neurons in your brain and it has an immediate body response to it. So when you put this thing in a um, say a Tesla hairpin circuit, and then you put it into the water, you put it into mud, right? And you put your hands in it, and the energy goes right through the ducts in your body, right through the sweating glands, right? And then it goes into your body. You're immediately playing with the plasma in your body. There's no question about it. The only thing is what level you're at. Are you in kilohertz? Did you match up beat frequencies? It becomes much harder. Did you get it down to hertz frequencies? Are you now more closely interacting with something? See, that's one of the misunderstandings of how things work. They don't understand that. So they don't understand that plasma itself is one of the conduits in our brain that actually turns things on and off and how we work. So is it alive? Well, it's the force that drives us. That neuron interaction is the force that exactly drives every decision we make. And because of the chemicals around it that it turns on, we have natural reactions to it.
now, I mean, as crazy as it may be, Malcolm Bendel, he went out and says that he got a blood transfusion, you know, in another country because nobody in the United States is going to do this for you, where they took his blood and they infused it with plasmoids. They basically ran it through, an ionization and cavitation process before, and then gave it back to him, and basically storing the memory of the plasmoid plasmatic charge into his blood, which then, if he exposes himself to to specific frequencies, his blood would be responsive at that point to those beneficial frequencies. More so than it already innately is.
Well, we
Again,
watched.
craziness, but I mean, I at first I never saw the logic of that. I was like, why the hell would somebody do that? But then the more that we kind of grew on the subject matter and everything, it was sort of like, okay, I can understand where he's going with that. I mean, he's still out of his mind for doing it, but it is what it is.
There's receptors in your body. You and I watched a video on this that talked about it. As soon as you hit a certain frequencies, those receptors open. Okay, so it'll open up your adrenal gland. It'll open up other ones in your body and give a instant response to what's going on.
Yep.
We're going down that road with Rife, and then science stepped in and shut him down. And that's why one of the things is very important. He's over here with the telescope looking into things and finding out the resonance frequency of everything. And you start to learn something very particular about it. The body responds to it because of the plasma in your brain that's interacting with everything and turning on and off these processes. But then he's showing you, hey, you can do it with energy if you make the correct connection inside of it. You can start controlling these processes. Well, what does that mean? It means big pharma's out of the picture.
They're out
immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
that's why they shut them down.
You hit the nail on the head with that. This is where chemistry and physics, smashes together. You have, like you said, all these receptors. And when you look at it chemically, all these hormones that hit these receptors or chemicals that hit these receptors, they have their own specific geometries and arrangements. They nestle up into these receptors, which are basically empty circuits. They need something plugged in order to complete their circuit. The more of these receptors that you plug into with different geometries is deterministic of the type of circuit that's being created. The type of circuit that's created is deterministic of two things: energy exchange rate, as I like to put it, upper dimensional energy exchange rate, okay, and the frequency in which that exchange rate is going to occur at, which one and the other are directly related, because the exchange rate and frequency is the motion over time, right? So the geometries of the molecules that plug into the receptors themselves are wildly important and specific, because I propose, I'm not going to say it is, but I propose that those molecules in that circumstance are acting as a resonant antenna, okay, to be deterministic of the frequency, therefore the exchange rate that's ultimately going to come in. Now, this is why things like certain specific chemicals or hormones, different ones, right, will hit the same receptors, but then have a different effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what happens over time, and I'm pretty sure science has already said this, your receptors clog up. And as soon as your receptors clog up, then you're not able to put out the actual chemicals needed for your body to heal. And you just curl up and die after a while. Your body can only fix so much stuff, right? But what does this do? This basically says where there's a disconnection between your brain and the receptor, we're turning it back on, right? Yeah. That's what it does. Now, that's what Reif believed in his work, and that's what he did. And he did it in very short bursts. It wasn't something that you can handle over time. You just have to remember something very important. Your body's in a time dilation field. So your internal clock is much different than the external clock that we live in. And as soon as you realize that, then you understand why 2 minutes in a device is worth years of exposure to something. Because then if you overdo it, you're way overexposing it. The radiation itself would take out the great effect and put in a very bad one, and then you're done.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense too. But it also, that same exact thing plays the same role to do with neuroplasticity and the formation of new neural pathways, right? So there's this whole thing that if you're being inducted with a certain frequency, that could actually force new pathways to be created, connecting things that previously were not before. And it's, in my opinion, at least, that once those pathways are carved, that is a form of in-life evolution, because once you're able to carve those certain pathways that weren't connected before, how are you the same as everybody else? Because you're not. You have literal functions that other people are unable to express.
Yeah.
So,
well, it goes back to the thing about mutation, right? We're not in equals by any means. You know what I mean? It's the mutation itself that allows for everything in changing how it works. So building new pathways is right along the right framework of exactly what we're doing. But then in plasma, we're doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? We're creating new pathways. Sean shows this all the time. As soon as he creates it once, he set the condition in the environment to allow it to happen again. And then it'll continue to happen, right? Like mice in a maze learning how to do the maze. Then all of a sudden, all the mice in the world learn how to do the maze right away. It's intelligent design that goes on inside the world, man. Resonance frequencies hit a certain receptor that changes something in the body that allows for memory to go on. But then we think about radio waves in the atmosphere, and we can hear a radio wave from the 1950s. Yep. I mean, just every once in a while out of the blue, if you have your radio on, you start to hear some, New York Dodgers or something like that going on, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
That sounds like the Mel Soul shit to me, huh?
Yeah.
For real.
But it's absolutely true, man. We're living in a cold plasma field. So it's taking those things and holding them in as memory. You got to think about it. It's just an RF frequency, right? But then it becomes memory in the Earth's magnetosphere itself and then bounces back to us.
All right, cool. So let's link this all together since it is all the same. All right. What you just said, okay, and now you know that you got your new sensor array, right? And we know that Sean's played with things in the past. But here's the one point that I don't think that we've ever really discussed about those types of sensors is that anything that can pick up like an antenna or receive as a sensor, is also equally as able to output, okay, as a transmitter. And if you, the prime example of this would be like an LED. Okay, you could plug an LED in and everybody knows what it does. It lights up. But what happens when you wire it so it doesn't light up, but it takes in, because it can and it does. So even when an LED is lit and it's a source of a light emission, okay, it's still, because the wiring is pretty much all the same, okay, it's actually reporting back all the light data that it receives back into the circuit at all times. You're being watched, you
Oh,
know,
you are.
and, right, you're being watched. And here's the thing, any source of light emission does the same thing. So if it's an incandescent or it's a halogen, okay, or it's a plasma tube, or it's the sun, okay, or even if it's a reflected light, okay, it's still, because of that reflection that you receive to your eye, there's a direct connection between what came into your eye and where it was reflected from and back to the source.
It's interesting you mentioned the eye. There was a surgeon out there that did eye surgeries for people, Joe, and he stopped doing them. He refused to do anymore because he learned something very simple. Your eyes are receptors to the world, and as soon as they take in the light itself has in the back of the eye, there's things in there that take in and collect all the different colored lights in there, and it immediately gives your body a response. So if you're never going out in the light, you don't get that. That's why all the vitamin stuff change in your body, right? So you have all these receptors inside behind your eyeball that take in all this stuff. So when they do laser eye surgery now, instead of cutting the eye itself, all they do is just put on these goggles and put you different lights that go on and off and stuff like this, and it reprograms your eyeballs to come out right. Well, think about that when you talk about the understanding of, everything in your body. If you start putting on those goggles and they get the right frequencies and putting them on and go into the light receptor, which puts them into an electrical signal in your body, guess what happens? Your pores start to open up. Everything starts to turn back on. That's a leap that they won't make yet, but they'll do it for your eye surgery right now.
Right. Well, here, you need proof that plasma is sent to you. Look at a tree. That's all you have to do. Because what you realize quickly is that a tree, okay, is born in the dark, okay, of the energy of the ground, all right, and uses the energy stored within the seed and the energy of the ground, okay, to sprout and to grow. And it grows downward and retrieves, and it grows downward in the way that you would expect for a circuit, an open circuit like that to grow, right? Fractally and outward, and tendrils, coming out, getting as much earth energy as possible. But then what does it do? Well, it grows upward, and then it expands upward to then connect, to be able to act as literally a semiconductor, you know, between the earth energy and the atmospheric energy, because we know that they want to make the connection. So they grow ever upward, and they're taking in the solar energy and they're taking in the atmospheric energy at those higher points. Because we talk about photosynthesis all the time, and we're like, it's the light, the plants need the light. Well, yeah, that's true, it is. But that's only one part of what it does up there, because all of the branches and the way that they grow out as well is acting as a fractal antenna, okay, to actually take in all of the energy potential that it's in resonant with atmospherically at a greater height.
Well, it's pulling in the ions from the ionosphere. It's trying to break through the gas layer that we're in and get to the ions in the ionosphere. But then again, in the roots, it does the same thing. It's trying to reach down, get into the ions that are going in there, because the ions are directly into the water table itself. It's why if you take a Tesla hairpin circuit and put it in water, it creates more ions in there, but the tree itself will grow 3 times as fast. You know what I mean? Because what you're doing is accumulating the ions. If you take a round magnet, put it around a seed, The inside is made of ions. So what does it do? It pulls it in there and it grows 3 times as fast. It's a fundamental understanding. That's why farmers used to be able to take coils, put them in their gardens, and it'd be able to grow their crops and everything without all of this different soil that they get from everyone else as fertilizer. It was a farming technique in the the 20s, before they started coming out with really heavy amounts of fertilizer, and they forced them to stop. Right. So it's directly reaching for the ions in the ionosphere because it knows, hey, we're an antenna. We need to pull those in, and they grow us. So that's the second part of it. But that's the plasma state is based on ions. So if you go over to a wire and it's sitting there in a vacuum chamber, what is it doing? It's throwing off ions. It's throwing off ion wind, gas, all those layers. But that's the plasma. That's the beauty of it.
I love this. All right, so let's talk about ratios real quick and this inverse relationship that exists and how it pertains to gravity. Interesting, isn't it? So you have this inverse relationship between the atmospheric energy and the earth energy, right? And what you find is that you have the highest energy potential, okay, up beyond our atmosphere, right where the atmosphere cuts off into space, is the highest energy potential of the atmospheric energy, okay? But you have the highest energy density, okay, of the atmospheric energy, basically at the crust. Now, inversely, you have the highest energy density in the core of the Earth, okay, but the highest energy potential at the crust. And that's the inverse relationship that exists. Now, what happens when you start getting further and further away from this ratio? Well, when you start to leave our atmosphere, okay, at a certain point, gravity stops mattering as much until it doesn't matter at all, right? And the same thing, if you were to, somehow manage to go through the Earth, you would find that, it's going to pull harder and harder for a while, and then it's going to start to let off, and then all of a sudden it won't matter at all anymore, right? And that's exactly the ratio that exists. Then that is the energy exchange dynamic that's deterministic of the gravitational relationship locally for us. There's greater mechanisms as well, okay, because of the dimensional energy exchange as well, that has to do with the greater time dilation. But that's primary to the secondary cause, right? Because the secondary cause, the thing that I just described about this inverse relationship, that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the upper dimensional energy exchange in the first place.
Well, anytime you compress ions, you have a time dilation going on. That's why it seems like the plants grow faster, but in their time period, they don't. They grow at the same rate. But what we're experiencing to them is them growing faster. It's because their time dilation field is different than the time dilation field on the exterior of it. So let's look at this. We take the Van Allen belt, right? And you calculate the distances in between it. Then you can directly calculate exactly how many distances you have in between inside the core of the planet, inside the planet itself to get down to the core. So what you're seemingly going to realize is the outer layer is the same as the inner layer, but at a different compression level, right? Different energy level. Then the next level. Science already understands that. That's why they have the mantle, the core, and stuff like that, right? What they're not realizing is no matter if it's a gas giant or if it's a regular planet, we're dealing with the plasma that are going on inside of it. You have to create a cold plasma field that goes on outside of it. You cannot do that with a nickel iron core. Therefore, the nickel iron core must be the shell of the plasma within. Now, just understand this. Every time that you create that plasma field, you're creating time dilation that goes on. You can't get away from it. It's a fundamental fact. Anytime you compress ions together, it creates that field. That's why when we talk about UFOs and stuff like that, it's the same time dilation field that we're talking about. When you're inside the bubble, it's different, right? But the same goes on here. So let's look at the plasma. We're dealing with plasma that goes on throughout the entire Earth. We have cold plasma that goes on, right? Boom. We have all our connection. We're connected to this Earth, whether you like it or not, through all the frequencies.
All right. So here's the crazy shit, right? Is that we know in order to get high plasma states, right? It's you have to break down the material, okay, to its primary constituents, more or less, okay, in order to be able to bring them into the level of excitation required for plasmatic formation. Okay.
Mhm.
So that means that the contingency is electrolytic process because you need the electrolysis in order to break the molecule down into the parts enough to then utilize the frequency of the electrolytic process to induce the high excitation state. So then this is where the vectoring comes in and the energy exchange comes in. Because without the energy exchange, okay, the energy exchange itself is deterministic of the vectoring, okay, and what's ultimately going to happen with the energy, what direction and what it's doing. In order to get an electrolytic reaction, you need current. So you need to be running a straight line, which is the requirement of that energy exchange to have 2 points of 2 dimensions of energetic dimension, right? You need to have.
Well, it doesn't have to be a straight line; it could be a figure eight. But
Well, no, I'm just talking about 2 points. It needs
okay,
an exchange between 2 points.
absolutely.
What it does, right? And that's what's deterministic of a current. And it's that current that's needed to actually break down the material, and then at that point, it could really start to accumulate in a charged state as a particle. And where it becomes more complex is usually that's where it ends. Is you use current state, it breaks down the matter. There's some plasma. The plasma doesn't do shit, and that's where people are like, "We made plasma. It's cool. Look, right on. Yeah, rock and roll. You know, whatever." But the thing is that you need to then revector your relationships, between point A and point B to have multi electromagnetic mode functions, okay, that then have offset differentials. When you have your offset differentials in these exchanges, now you can start having organized mass accumulation on both sides of the reaction. And Lord and behold, here we are doing lab experiments, because that's pretty much what it is. You need to take all the modes of electromagnetism and have them in the same system in order for
Well,
them to occur.
let's look at it like this. They say that you control a UFO with your mind, so the only way you're getting to do that is through the plasma state. Just understand that up front. The only way you'd ever be able to control any kind of UFO with your mind is through the plasma state. You must recognize the Hertz level and then put your mind in the same state of it. It will actually react based on your brain patterns of doing that versus anything else. So it'll act like the shell is part of your body, is what I'm
Right.
saying. It'll
Mhm.
feel like the receptors, your pain receptors, everything that shell feels, your mind's going to go through. If you're not mentally ready for that, like Green Lantern level, you know what I mean? We're putting our mind straight and getting it right. You're going to hurt and it's going to tear your brain apart. You have to be able to do this with one focus, one goal, one understanding to get through it. I can't tell you how many people, when I'm standing in the side of a field, will not come in the room. They won't come anywhere near it because their mind isn't right for it. They immediately, boom, they head directly out. Different pattern for them, right? Just right for me. Okay, I'm over here and I'm controlling experiments, and the next thing you know, we're creating a capacitance inside the air, and then the air itself is pulling around you. Okay, and I'm not talking like a little bit, man. This is harsh stuff. This is where everything in the room starts to flicker on you, and you start to control things, and it gets weird on you. Okay, real fast. But that's what the mind does. It controls things at a certain level. That's why they don't allow you to go below a certain hertz in order to create energy going into your home. Okay. That's why they keep it on off frequencies when they do this stuff. They do not want everything working. Like if they wanted to make things work better, all you have to do is take everything in your house, create it to the same frequency that goes on the pole. And as soon as you do that, man, everything in there is in a complete resonance. Now you pick up extra energy because it's no longer fighting itself. And then it runs continuously for a long time and people are amazed, right? But that's the way it's supposed to work. And we design systems to fail on purpose so that it doesn't work that way. So they can sell you a new toaster, they could sell you a new blender because they don't want it to work forever.
I mean, the key here is the word channeling,
Yes.
right? Like, and it really does work, and there's a reason that they call it a TV channel, right? Like in old school when people used to use cable or shit like that. But like they call it a television channel. You know, you tune into the channel. And what do you do if you want to still lay in bed, not have to get up and flip a switch to change that channel? Well, you use a remote control, you know, and what the remote control does is the remote control, okay, is and at the same frequency as the receiver on the TV, okay, it's sending it a signal and then giving it the command to reach another signal that's then tuned in on this. And it's pretty much the same deal. You know, when you become in tune with these other certain things, there's an innate connection that occurs. And you know, all of a sudden, you know, you have greater access to it. The unusual thing though, okay, is that it seems like for most people, okay, that are able to um, get to the points where they realize that this is the thing and then they're able to do that. They recognize what it is that we're doing because we all actually do this all the time without knowing it, no matter who you are, right? Is like you tune into these things. Um, you become though the television, you know,
Yeah.
where you are a receiver at that point, but not so much a broadcaster. You know, like the television, watching the TV, right, doesn't broadcast you to anybody else,
No.
right? It only shows you what's coming in. And, you know, I think that that's where like a lot of people end up getting stuck, not realizing what I said before, which is anything that gives off light also takes in the light from its environment and reports it right back into the same system in which it came, which means that every television that you've ever watched, you're you are going back into the wire. It's just nobody's tuned into that to discover it, you know.
Right.
But you are going back into that wire. You are being put back into that system. You are being broadcast.
So, okay, let's go into this because we have to. Vatican is said to have a device to be able to see the past, right? Well, let's see how that would work. We take plasma from the ionosphere, which records everything, by the way, inside of it. It has packets of information, just like RF signals. It records everything that goes on inside the Earth. You connect to that with your television screen, you put them on the same level, and they communicate, right? What are you getting? You're watching the RF signal of the past on your screen at all times then. Now you'll be able to view the past, right? It sounds like something scientifically impossible, but it's really not because you think about it, the only thing that you're doing in your TV is you're being able to take the plasma and manipulate it in order to create the light on the screen. Well, what if you just take the signal from a different source? You see, it's not much different. You just have to know how to connect with the source. So when we talk about things in a Slayer Exciter circuit, what we're doing is we're connecting with the source or resonating with it. But when you start resonating with the source of the ionosphere, what you're doing is you're pulling in the energy of it and the memory of it in order to see it on the TV screen itself. It is no different. It's all the same basic understanding. Is can you connect with that source? That's it. It's already there. It's already a given. It's already in there. As a matter of fact, crystals store energy better than anything, and they store mass amounts of information that you may not understand yet. You see, I don't think ancient libraries are built on a bunch of papers and stuff like that. Not for the advanced civilization. They're all built in crystal. Every bit of crystal tells its story, and it tells you the story of the earth continuously inside of it, and all of the information's in there. So when you start talking about a Vatican player that could see the past, yes, it absolutely can because it's all recorded in the ionosphere. Now,
Yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff out there that records this plasmatic data that it's not even funny.
yeah,
And once you realize that, I mean, anything and everything transparent, whether it's glass or plastic or a crystal or, you know, if it's transparent in any way, shape, or form, there's refraction points that occur. And it's like I discussed before about the crystal sphere, you know, and I have it right here just to kind of give the visual again, you know. This crystal sphere is constantly and always capturing every bit of data that is 360 degrees around it at all times. And the way that you know this is true, okay, is that it has a central point of coalescence. And there's this point directly in the center where the image flips upside down. You see me upside
I see
down,
you upside down.
and I see you upside down, right? What that means is that everything crosses. And we're at the point where everything crosses. I've looked at that point, and I've shown us looking at that point, and it's literally a hole where everything breaks down into its little tiny bits, you know, and distorts, and then goes away, and then comes out flipped. Okay, and it's at that very threshold of where it goes away. You know, you try to look into that hole as hard as you fucking can, and you cannot, because that is on the other side of Planck. Okay, it crossed Planck, and all the data that is 360 degrees, and it blows your mind when you really think about it. Okay, it's from every infinite point on this at all times, from every direction, caught and stored in that same exact central location.
Oh, a Vogel, sorry. The exact same size all the way around. And it creates a direct point. Well, what does that do? That was multiple resonance at once, man. Perfect crystal in order to make energy inside your craft. That's the one I'd start with. Man, you know what? These things, Joe, they don't tell you a lot of this stuff, but this world is so much simpler when you get down to really what things are. So I went through an experiment today, right? Bismuth in the center of the core, 360-degree sphere of it. You put water on the outside of it. You put piezoelectric discs on the outside of that, right? So you're basically creating the Merkaba chamber, but you're putting bismuth in the core. So what happens? Well, you're dealing with an ultrasound, number one, okay, that goes through, and the water pushes the ultrasound super fast, okay, right through it to the bismuth, right? But the bismuth is reactive. Anything that pushes upon it pushes right back with 5 times the force, okay, or higher. So what happens is you automatically build out an ionic field inside because you created a 360-degree compression firing off in different orders based on geometry that actually pushed it and forced the field out beyond it like this, right? So you're basically creating a perfect core for a craft. That's the point of it. But that's the energy at work. So now you think about it, you go, okay, now I have this outside field. So what do I need? I just need some ions in there in the center, right? I need some kind of exchange in there. You put a little ions in the center. What is it? It's a draw to cold electricity. It's called draw to cold electricity. Puts an ion field in the core and an ion field on the outside that it's accumulating the energy from everywhere around you. You're literally building the plasma layer in between the double layer that goes on inside of it. It's the boundary zone. In that experiment, it tells you right away, there's no difference in all of this. We do all of this on a daily basis, whether it's in an atom, whether it's in plasma physics, whether it's in planetary physics. It's all the same thing. We're just learning how to do it. We have to be able to take a ferromagnetic and then go to a paramagnetic and then go to a diamagnetic, and then that's the field ratios. We're just looking at how fast everything moves, how fast you could transfer an ion to an electromagnetic state. And then you break it back down again. You go, okay, well, I'm going to go the opposite way. It looks like it cancels. It doesn't. It splits it. It's. I came across something very stupid, Joe, and very stupid, okay? Physics says you take 2 electrons, bash them together, you get an ion, right? But then if I take a geometry coil and I take 2 electromagnetic fields and push them together, they say it cancels, right? Like the energy goes nowhere, right? But then what happens in the geometry coil when I build it? It basically puts out an ion field in the core of the geometry coil itself, and you get a bunch of ions compressed in there, right? They knew that it happened, but they say it cancels out. So in one breath, they're saying you could destroy energy, and then in the next breath, they're saying ions are pixie dust that come out of nowhere, but they didn't. They just went through a process of transformation, and they didn't recognize it, and they told it to themselves and continue to lie to themselves and saying, cancels out. Well, mathematically it cancels out because it's not equals, okay? It's equilibrium. Therefore, it cannot cancel itself out. It must reduce to the smallest form. You get into this state where you're like, science talks out of both sides of its ass, and it ain't right. And when you call them on it, they start to freak out. Well, yeah, but this and that. No, no, no. You made the rules, buddy. I'm following the rules. And once you made them, you screwed yourself, because I learned to go right around it. You cannot take the fraction on this side, flip it on the other side to the fraction on this side, and give me an equals, because it's not equals, it's equilibrium. The left side always looks different than the right side in every single equation, because it's never equals. It's always
right. It's a non-equilibrium state. And it's got to be, because if you reach the equilibrium state, then that's the same as stillness, right? And again, stillness is a bit of a general issue, total equilibrium. But nonetheless, and it's something interesting about bismuth, right? So bismuth crystallizes in reverse, right?
Yeah,
So,
it does.
and I actually had, I forget who it was or what the context was, but I had somebody sit that like argue with me all over this one time, and I was like, "No, that's what they taught you, and you're wrong." I was like, "But that's because they weren't trying to really, delve into it, right?" Bismuth is the only thing, okay, that crystallizes from the outward in. And what this person said to me had me had to think for a second. They're like, "Well, I mean, that's not true." It's like, look at an ice cube, the ice cube, it freezes from the outside in, just like bismuth. I was like, yes, it does, but that's not the point that I'm making. The point is that the seed where the crystallization starts is at a certain point in the ice, and then that ice grows outward. Now, if that nucleation of the crystal starts at the surface, because that was the coldest and the first to solidify, that crystal is still nucleating and growing outward and downward, and in an expansion, toward the center in that case, because you're talking about an ice cube in a tray, right? So that's how you could end up with water in the middle of your ice cube, is because the expansion of the nucleation of the ice has not yet reached the central point of that water, right? But it's still expanding in nuclear, but everything else does that same exact thing. If you're making corundum in a lab and you're taking aluminum oxide and you're heating it up, and you have a seed crystal in there to get it to start to form, it starts to form centrally and then grow out, and centrally and grow out as the melt starts to accumulate, it starts to cool, it still does that same exact thing. And you could see that nucleation process over and over again. Bismuth doesn't do that. Bismuth, no matter what the conditions are, it sits there and says shell first and then inward, and that's its nucleation starts outward and goes inward. It's totally inverse. Well, what does that mean? It means all sorts of different things. It's working on the other side.
Yeah. Well, it's diamagnetic. So
exactly, it's pushing it out.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. So where the other is dependent on the magnetic field structures, in resonance and so on, to help with the structuring, this is actually pushing that out, and then bringing it from within. And that's sort of the deal. So it's a higher geometry.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's say it this way. It's diamagnetic because it has a lot of ions in it. It's heavy on ions, right? But what does that mean? It means it's going to push that field out. It's going to have a reactance layer. So normally we take a ZVS and we put the coil in there, and then we drop metal in there. It immediately heats, and you get a magnetic field, right? So what did it do? It melted all the metal and took the ions and converted it to the center of the core itself, and created the same exact structure I always talk about. You know what I mean? The how do I say this? The layering effect with a double layer. So you're doing that, but when you put bismuth in there, there's holes that start to get created inside of it. It'll swirl the metal inside and make holes. Why? Because it's diamagnetic. Because it's basically showing the inner structure of the ions inside of it. It's a far different metal than most people think it is. It's a reactance metal. It's because it's going against your magnetic field. As soon as you put water in there, it amplifies the effect. That's why you would put water in there. This is going down to the material science layer, guys, that most people don't get into or understand at all. They think you turn on energy on something, hit it with brute force fire hose, and that's the way you're supposed to run it. They have no idea what energy coupling is. I can tell you right now, I've seen physicists all day not understand this simple technique, but it's because they're not engineers. They keep thinking things equal. So why look at it as something different on one side than the other instead of looking at it as an exchange? It's a complete failure. And that's why you see me say it that way, because I'm engineering stuff, because I see it. I'm seeing the exchange rate, right? You're seeing it happen. So bismuth is an absolutely fascinating material in doing this. And let me also say this for most people that need to understand this. If you're doing a cold energy experiment, the best thing that you could do is put a piezoelectric disc in it. Okay. Barium titanate is a fast fill, fast discharge capacitor. What does that mean? It immediately takes in the ions, converts it into electromagnetic, and then pushes that out in seconds or less. Okay. What does it mean? It means it automatically creates a beat frequency, which means that you're putting a discharge rate going into it, right? Automatically. It automatically does that. What does that do? It means the energy gets to a very small state to a very big state quickly, and then discharges quickly. Okay? It means that you're getting a higher state of energy. So when you start looking at people who are getting over unity on their devices, stuff like that, look at the material science behind it. What did they use to create that type of capacitor? Because I'm telling you right now, it's the answer to what you're missing. Every single one of these replications I see in are not seeing the material science. Even though it's said in the documentation, they don't put it in there.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about that is the answer to that is the same as the answer to anti-gravity. It's the same as the answer to time dilation. The same as your capacitor is the same as what the energy exchange has to be. Asymmetric, right? It has to be asymmetric. But I wanted to address something because I thought it was a really good question.
Go ahead.
So it was from Bill in the chat. He says, what are these geometric arrangements of the A field, such as static electric and magnetism? Are they geometrically arranged, condensed, and diluted in space itself? High pressure flows to low. So that's a good question, I felt. So this is my opinion on it, and take it with a grain of salt. But if you take into consideration that the manifestation of either static or magnetism in general, right, is contingent on matter, okay? Meaning that transient energy is non-manifest. What you realize is that the transient energy that becomes manifest, okay, in the presence of matter, is going to react to it in different ways depending on what it is, okay, and what environment it's in. So what else is it in relationship to? So if you just have a random space object, okay, it itself is going to cause some excitation, because of the energy exchange that exists, and of the ambient transient energy. And that's going to create some degree of magnetism. It's going to create some degree of what you're referring to as static is actually, potential that is a potential accumulation on matter. Okay. So it's unvectored energy, if that makes sense, right? So what do these geometries look like? Well, it's all repeating and it's all the same pretty much. It's going to, the geometries would be depending on the nature of its vectoring, of the energy vectoring that it's able to excite. So there could be a situation where something just simply has an accumulation of potential on it with no vectoring, and that geometry would just be concentrated at the surface and diffuse, right? And that would be it. if you start to bring it into, a current state and stuff, depending on what the material is, it's probably going to have a magnetic component at that point because of the current. So the current itself is going to be a constituent of it having some type of magnetic component, which means that the field would then look more condensed but still diffused, but it would have a boundary torsion layer, okay, at minimum. And you would probably get some type of material excitation off of that because, as we said earlier, current is direct result of electrolysis type breakdown of matter, and then is also the cause of high excitation, meaning that you probably have a plasma plume of some sort or plasma accumulation under that. Now, once it becomes more complex, either material wise or environmentally, where you have multiple bodies in an area where their fields are then interacting, this is when the field geometries cross, right? So once you start to have these energy exchanges between bodies, then, okay, now you have a secondary axis that comes in that changes the vectoring. These parallel axes, as we've said many times before, they cross. And then they have a third vector that then goes around it as an offset differential of those two field interactions, being a beat frequency pulse that is standard magnetism dimensionally. And generally speaking, actual electromagnetism in the high order state would be spherically toroidal. So it would be spherical with a boundary zone with still mild diffusion, with definite rotational vectoring, as well as central axis dimensional tunneling through the toroidal pulse. So that's what you'd be looking at geometry wise. It would just be the step up of electromagnetism vectoring depending on what the material and the interaction is. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so I'll say how I think about it, Joe. Static electricity is a charged state. It's a state upon an item. Okay, it's created in a mechanical form in order to create the charged state. Okay, ions is a pure electrical state. It's a little bit different, right? So let's look at Walter Russell, okay, and how he does his atomic scale. In order to understand this properly, okay, you have to start to see resonance differently than you normally would. And it goes to a positive and negative on the scale. It's two funnels. Okay, on one side of the scale, you have one funnel, on one side of the scale, you have another funnel. That's basically how it comes out, right? Resonance goes like this. It goes up, a high point, comes down, goes back up to a high point like a saw blade, right? But instead of a saw blade being a circle, it now builds out from it, okay? Just like the golden ratio builds out. Now think about this. Every time it does that, when you're looking down at the funnel, it creates little nodes. So as you're looking at it, you're getting a geometry pattern. You're getting a little node that shows up here at the top of the resonance point in every single one of them. When you start to do that, you start to see a geometry based in there, right? You say, okay, I see a hexagon that created out of these nodes that are in there. To us, it looks two-dimensional, so we can actually see what it looks like. To the funnel itself, it's not. It's in the spherical part of the funnel, right? But it goes positive on one side, negative on the other, based on the ion exchange rate that's going on inside of it. Therefore, each time we get into a different resonance level, it creates a different material that comes out of it. That's Walter Russell and the understanding of it. So a geometrical pattern, as you look down on it, looks two-dimensional. We're seeing the geometry, but what is it really? It's nodes that come out, and each side, each single one of them, when it hits the high point of resonance in order to create the node, and then it does it in a funnel. And that's as simple as you get. And you have two funnels that goes on in between it. So therefore, you have one pattern up here, one pattern down here, and they're geometrically based. So what's the difference in it? If you understand Walter Russell and you understand ion scale in order to build things, which means that basically in anything you want to separate material, you must bring it to an ion level. Chemistry says that. Then we go on and we start looking at physical things. Can we change any gases doing it? Yes, because we have to ionize everything before we can change the gas into it, which means the ions change everything. Why is that correct? Because your electron is not exactly the electron you thought it was. It is literally a wrapped field around all of the ions, and then that's the change.
All right, so let's play with this and let's tie that directly into the whole point of this episode today. Is plasma sentient, or what's the nature of that sentient plasma? Well, first of all, what you just said, you have this whole entire process where things are being broken apart and then put back together, and they're being put back together. And the very nature of how they're being put back together is by the capture of the energy that broke them apart. And it's like I've said countless times, this relationship between energy and matter exists in this very interesting dynamic where energy is trying to bring matter back to a pure energy state. Okay. But what happens oftentimes is that it'll break that matter apart, but then the matter will still want to form back up. And then it utilizes the energy that broke it apart to then structure its bonds and trap that energy within it. Okay. Meaning that the energy that was breaking it apart is actually then captured in the stable form of matter as the very mechanism that holds the molecular structure together in the first place.
There you go.
And sometimes, when things are wishy-washy, when you're just working in the current state, okay, what you're going to see is that you're forming this loosey-goosey plasma that goes into a state of diffusion, okay, and then the material is gone, and what you're left with is heat that goes into a state of diffusion, except it's useless. It's tits on a bull at that point once it goes into diffusion. You see, you can never use it. Once it's heat, right, and I've said this before, once it's heat, it's done.
It has to go back into a transfer process in order to get reclaimed.
And the reason that it's done, okay, is because the matter is gone. The matter is gone because it went back to the energy state and left the heat signature behind. And that's why you can't take heat and vector it into a current. That's why you have to take heat and then try to excite something else to then, but it's at a huge loss of fission, so you see where I'm going with that. It's crazy shit is what it is.
But I don't think it disappears at all. It's just, it transfers its energy to something else. So if it creates heat and then it creates a wind change, right? It creates the energy in the movement. It's transferring the energy to the movement. And then the movement transfers that energy into, whatever next process it got to go into. But it's a chain reaction effect. You know what I mean? Right. It means that it's still pushing. Remember the ball? It's still pushing the energy, right? No matter what you do, it's still pushing the energy. So it's gone. It's a waste to us, but it doesn't mean it's a waste to the planet because the planet starts to recycle everything. No,
it's not that it's a waste to us or a waste to the planet. It's that it is the waste of the process of energy returning to matter. And it, as science says, and I happen to agree, the heat is entropic and goes into a state of diffusion, and then and the whole point is that the energy that could have been a current, that could have been static, could have been current, could have been scalar, it could have been light, could have been magnetism, depending on how you shoot it or direct it, can no longer be, because if you take heat and redirect it, it doesn't matter.
Gone from its original form.
Redirecting it. So the heat makes the matter, and the energy in the matter is gone, and what you're left with is this heat that can't be turned directly back into that which it came. Yeah, we consider, we consider the heat energy, but it's not. It's spent energy, is what it is. We're working with the remnants, you see.
I understand where you're going with it, yeah.
So actually, when you look at a regular combustion engine, okay, and you're using the chemical break down the explosion and implosion events, okay, that's a more pure form of use of energy, okay, than firing a steam locomotive, okay, or anything where you're trying to heat something up to spin a turbine, okay, because all you're doing at that point is you're using the byproduct of the energy, right, to then heat something as a secondary reaction. You see,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of what it is. It actually doesn't
Just a
actually make
waste.
sense. Yeah, it doesn't actually make sense, right? If you think about it, why you wouldn't have something that's converting heat into steam, why you wouldn't be using the combustion event as the primary source, and then utilizing the heat from the combustion event as the secondary source. To then further the efficiency, because then you're getting it on both ends.
Well,
Instead, you just burn it.
why not combine them? I mean, that's the whole double RAV experiment. That's a
Well,
combination of both.
now this is the RAV. This is the RAV. This is thunderstorm generator. The whole point is that you got a human centipede the thing into a ring, where the poopy feeds the shoot. Like, I hate to say it, like, but that's the whole entire point. It's like, burn the fuel, you use the reaction, recondense it, get the fuel again, and send it right back where it came, into like a nice little circle, and that's sort of the idea.
Hey, I just want to shout out, man. We got a new member, man. Thank you very much.
Right on. Thank you. So is it sentient? Yes. Guess what? It binds everything together, because all that energy that was caught up, that binds matter together in the first place, is all plasmatic in its nature, and it's just held in stable. It's just held in structured form, and it's held that way because it becomes entrapped by things that it's attracted to, and then repel, and because it's attracted to it, here, but then it's also attracted to this piece over there, so that it's stuck in the middle. Now, if you take that energy away, it all falls apart.
Well, see, heat isn't always bad. Think about this. You think about entropy, right?
Mhm.
If you can create cold in the center and heat on the outside, you get entropy all day. You're going to be able to not only shift the air, but you're going to pull in the energy that the air brings. So you got to remember, we're in gas. So you're attracting the gas to the center, which means you're attracting more fuel to whatever you're doing. So it's not necessarily always a bad thing, because it just shifts the energy level, changes into entropy, and we're able to use it in our system.
Well, now we're just talking about a different set of differentials, is all. That's all it is. Because at the end of the day, it's still the same thing, which is the non-equilibrium state. And it doesn't matter what the differentials you bring into this equation, like legitimately across the board. You can bring social dynamics into the same exact balancing equation, okay, and you will end up with the same result every single time, because frankly, what works in physics also works in psychology. And that's beyond a coincidence. Like, it just has to do with non-equilibrium state. If you have it just be a one-way path, and you don't have a separation of the differentials under a controlled exchange, then things are in a chaos mode. Things run hot and cold. This is what happens when things are incoherent.
Yeah.
And when the ratios are off. Incoherence is an improper ratio.
I want to shout out Papa Bale, becoming a member, man. Thank you very much, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Papa.
So let's go to this, Joe, because we want to do this. And this happens in meditation. And I'll let you take it. I'll just set it up for you, okay? Your two parts of your brain, okay? You have the old school part of your brain in the back, okay? And you have the upper lobe and everything else, right? Now, they call it the primitive part of the brain in the back, basically controlling all systems while you think about everything else. You're thinking about the hot girl over here, it's thinking about how your lungs work, right? So when you get to the state of meditation, what you're actually doing is taking this, combining it with this, and getting an understanding of what's going on. But that is the exact point in which you to create the exchange and how your mind manipulates the plasma in your body. real quick before you start, Darren, you're awesome, brother. We love you, man.
Always, man. Like #1 fan status there. We love everybody, but Darren, thank you very much for your generosity, brother. So where are you going with that? Like you're talking about the control aspects of it.
So if you're sitting there and you tell me you meditate every day, like an old monk, right? And you go, okay, Nathan, I can start to control things. I can move things, move energy in my body, right? I can process it here. I can hit it back here, and then it goes throughout the rest of my body as a function that I wanted it to. Okay? That's what I'm saying. So if you start to control plasma in a ship, that's the exact function you have to have. If you don't combine that, you don't have the control at all. That's the plasma state.
Yeah. I mean, so you mentioned like the subconscious mind and stuff before. First of all, I think that neurology is just starting to catch up with this whole idea that your automatic functions, so to speak, right? And they don't exist purely at different parts of the brain like they initially thought. That may be where the pathways turn back around, meaning that the actual process control itself lies within the nervous system, which is more related to Eastern medicine, where they start to look at things like different trigger points and acupressure points, and just chakras, and things of that nature. That our entire nervous system is at one with the brain and equally is responsible for these control mechanisms, which totally makes sense. Okay. That's first and foremost. Second, the subconscious mind being a whole different thing. Because realistically, that's the gate that you have to be able to get through, in order to actually be successful in meditation, and the thing is that we are physically built to be kept the fuck out of there. Like big time. You are meant to never be able to access that. And
okay, real quick. That's the Sumerian cutoff line right there. That's where they took away our power. Go ahead.
So, I mean, and that all lies behind the ego, right? And that's very Jungian stuff there, but that's exactly what it is. You have this ego as your gatekeeper, the sense of self that keeps you out of your real self. And the reality of it is, and anybody who's kind of gone through it for whatever reason, whether they were trying to or not, where they become privy to their subconscious, it's devastating.
Yeah.
That's why you're supposed to be kept out, is because it's devastating. The honesty of it is devastating. The reality, the truth of it is devastating. The recall of it is devastating. It takes everything that you've told yourself and gives you a second, third, and fourth view at it. And what's crazy is that you actually have to be able to chew through this entire subconscious, before you could even see what's in there. And that's like the ultimate goal here. The crazy thing is that that is the plasmatic force. You understand, like what we're saying before about how all this information, right? Anything that receives light can give light, right? And anything that can give light can receive light. Everything that you've ever said, everything that you've ever seen, everything that you've ever heard, anything that you've ever inferred, intuitively or otherwise, okay, is all stored in wild, great detail, permanently there. Like brain damage can't get rid of it. Like it's just, as long as you're alive, that's there. And like being able to then explore this plasmatic force, but then emptying it out. So being like, okay, you know what? I can come to terms with this. Not everybody can do that because like people have real deal crises over this stuff. It's a very real thing. You know, they have existential crises. They lose their mind. They either end up, you know, committed or hurting themselves or like losing all faith in everything or whatever it is, you know. But if you are one of the few that get to the bottom of that well, you know, or close to it, then what you're rewarded with is fruit, you know.
So let me put this out there. First of all, I want to say I said Sumerian, I meant Anunnaki when I said that. So let's correct that real quick. Here's what you're getting at, Joe. Usually you have left brain, right brain. So you got two little angels, right? Or an angel and a devil, if you want to call it that way, on your shoulder. Okay. And they're talking to you at all times.
I don't know that it's that, but we'll go with it.
Well, just hear me out on it, okay? Because it'll make sense.
We'll go with it.
So if you connect with the person next to you in your plasmatic field, you now hear their angel, their devil on their shoulder in your head. Okay. This is the problem. Okay. If you connect with somebody too much, you start getting their vibes. And you say, well, okay, well, we've seen it in a simple form. Two women come into the same household, their cycles become the same, right? But then again, your brain chemistry starts to become the same. You start thinking the same way. You get this group effect going on, okay? Then you start channeling it together. But basically what starts to happen is if you're one of those people that have those problems, it's because you're hearing other things other than the ones in your head, okay? And it'll drive you absolutely insane. But what do you think a ship would do? You're sitting there in there and you got this, you're talking to yourself in your head, and here's this thing in plasma coming at you. It's going to be a third voice. And you got to be able to control that voice. You got to be able to accept it. Hey, you're here, buddy. You're not going away. Okay, we're good to go. Let's acknowledge and work together to get it right. That's not hard to figure out, but sometimes people get an extra angel or demon going on and they're going like, what the hell's going on? Well, you have a different understanding of energy. You can go in an environment and be very hurt just by trees or anything that's going on in there. You're very receptive to all that stuff. Okay. Where a moron like me isn't. Okay. You're not going to hurt me one bit by it because my brain is completely focused and I don't have that. Okay. But there's a difference, you know what I mean? The two. That's why I say it's in plasmatic force. And the way I would say for somebody to get into meditation to figure this out, if you can actually do it, is one state. Can you create the body heat in your body in meditation to rise? That's an old monk thing. And it just has to do with, are you truly controlling what's going on? If you are, you can raise and lower the temperature of your body at will. If you're not in the right state.
I think that's actually fair. That's actually not that's not a bad way to think about it. And it reminds me quite a bit of the Tool song Parabola, right? Where it's like basically you're just like in a vessel, and you're controlling this vessel, but you don't realize that you also have control of the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference between controlling the vessel and being in control of the vessel, because you can move the arms, but can you, can control every aspect. And there's aspects that like that you can control to a greater or lesser extent. You can fix your breathing. You can fix your heart rate. You can manipulate your body temperature. You can sit there and focus, and energy flows of plasma, mind you. To certain specific areas to help yourself overcome something that's hurting you. You can sit there and focus on something that is bothering you, for instance, and come to terms with the fact that this is subjective. This pain is an illusion. right? Was from the sun, and that's sort of a very real aspect of it to a certain more or less degree, where you start to get caught up, and this is where it becomes hard, right? Is the separation between the conscious and the unconscious, right? Because the conscious mind knows that something hurts, right? And because you know something hurts, that in itself is a locked door, okay, to being able to get rid of that pain or increase the energy flow to that area or change the circumstance. That you have to know that you're in control of that, and that's subjective, that's an illusion. I'm going to overcome this and change it. It's crazy. you know um it's it's very, very, I mean, that's one of my favorite songs in the world. It's beautiful. Anyway, yeah, you could definitely raise and lower your body temperature if you want to.
Well, it's like the first try to get it right. You know what I mean? Is are you in control of your system or you're not? And it kind of goes to willpower, right? Are you in control or are you not? Can you tell it what to do or can you not? And a lot of times, going through a lot of pain like I do, sometimes it's mind over matter, right? Like it isn't going away. So either you're, like you said, accept it and move forward and do all that you can, or live and die in it. And
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I just want to expand on one thing.
go ahead.
When you're doing things like raising your body temperature, or like as a whole, right? And since that was the example that you gave,
Yeah.
like it's actually something that you have to remove yourself from yourself and do it as a third party. And I know that sounds super strange, but like you see, when there's certain things you can do, like control your energy flow, okay, through your body, and out of your body, okay, that you can do in like normally like this. Like you can actually sit there, focus, and bring your energies into and do all that here, right? But in order for you to do those external things like that, you have to take your energetic force and remove it from yourself and then do it to yourself. It's crazy. That's realistically what it is. You realistically could only raise your temperature, for instance, so much if you're doing it as a first person, because when you're in the first person, your control is subject to to your nervous system. This is actually trying to induce it into your entirety. It's a different situation. It's very, very weird to think about, but that's how the visualization of it goes. The same thing with like self-healing. Self-healing, same thing. You're supposed to be looking at yourself and the affected area and then directing it at yourself from outside yourself.
Okay, so it's like the brain thing. If the primordial part of your brain is the third conscious level, right? And you have to give in and let it speak, right? So the left and right side of your brain has to shut up. And then the primary side at the bottom of your brain has to speak up. So now it's saying, I'm going to control this, right? So you're not in your regular mind that you think of up here anymore. You're in the part of your mind that you don't ever get to talk to. See, that's kind of the thing there, right? So you give in, you allow it to do its thing, but it's changing it, not you. So you have to give up the illusion of control in your brain in order to allow it to do it, even though it's your own body telling you to do it. So that's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, the whole nature of this life, I guess, is that, we have the plasmatic force that by default, by design, I should say, not by default, but by design, is locked into this box, and, by default, we probably are not locked into the box. But that's the magic trick. You see, when you're a child, you're very not locked into the box. You ever see a kid that can sit there and I know I was this kind of kid, sit there and play with a toy for like, you know, and create a world and stuff like, like just their own thoughts and imagination, and just go off with it. And it seems so real and compelling and interesting. And like, you can
Mhm.
sit there for all day and do it. And it's like, it doesn't, from the outside observer, it doesn't look like the kids do that much. Like, you know, but realistically, they're living outside the physical realm at that moment. It's not until like, the whole societal aspect of, hey, over here. Okay, no, no, no. All right, time to put that away. That's when you get forced into your box of physical reality. And it's just, and then once you're locked in, you're locked in. It's
I want to tell you something Liz said to us a while back, Joe. And we were talking about, for those of you who don't remember, Liz is ancient Atlanta. She has memories of being in Atlantis, things like that. And she shares those with us. She said something very interesting. And it kind of comes back to this. When she was a child, she had the memories of somebody who lived in Atlantis, right? And she believes that was her in a previous life. So, what happens if you have the same exact frequency throughout time in different bodies? Well, it would seem that you can pass on your knowledge because it's reflective off your ionosphere. So your receptors are different when you're a child, just like Joe said.
Mhm.
So now you're getting all that information from a past life being put right into your brain of what was going on. And you could say what's going on. So we see this in other instances where you see children say, oh, I know what happened to this person in Egypt, or I know what to this person happened in Egypt, right? And they go and tell you exactly where a tomb is, or something like that, and they believe that they were that person in a past life. Well, if the resonance system matches 100%, then they're getting all that information downloaded to them from the ionosphere that carries all that information in it. Then they can put it out when they're a child, when their receptors are open. When their receptors are closed as an adult, they no longer get that advantage. That's what's insane. So they use different states in order to bring back those memories, right? They hypnosis. They try to go to what we were just talking about. The oh man, I forgot the name. We were meditating, right? They go into meditative states and stuff like that because they're trying to reconnect that thing that they had as a child. That's what I found so interesting. God, dude, I haven't found, by the way, too many of anything Liz says to us that isn't absolutely true. Resonance through crystals, you know what I mean? Past lives. You go into how the environment was at the time, how it was, you know, two spheres like this on the outside that were actually iced over, and you had a center layer in the middle. It matches how planetary physics work when you start talking about different water levels and different abilities for the gravity to work in those levels because the ocean is further down, right? We're looking at things that are under ocean like 20 miles, and we're looking at it going, oh my God, what would the actual amount of gravity be because you're compressing the water more inside the earth? It's a different understanding, but she's been dead on, man, with how she sees things. And then people of Atlantis being so much different than the regular people around it. You know what I mean? How they act, how they interact, the songs that go on, which are basically just resonant songs that are going on that they dance to. Everything starts to match. It's incredibly insane.
So there's a story from India, right? That's similar to kind of what you're saying. And it's something, and if I get some of the details wrong, it's something like this. But one woman died, okay, and another woman had hit her head. And the woman who died entered into the unconscious body of the woman who hit her head. And when she came to, she was somebody else completely. And she knew exactly who she was. And and she was freaking out and was able to give all this information to identify, like, no, people know me, you know, and you're not my husband, you're not my mom, like all this stuff. And freaking out that what she looked like was different and all this stuff, right? And long and short, they actually got the family that she said that she was with, whatever, they were like reluctantly participating to meet this woman who said that there was their whatever that had passed away, and she immediately said things and hugged it, and like the connection, and it was like instantaneously they knew it was her, the dead person, and the other person was just gone. And if you think about it, I mean, if you go unconscious and then you're at a certain very hyper specific but different resonance, and that's the same resonance that somebody else that just passed away was at, and that energetic force wasn't ready to go. You have one person out of phase where their soul is basically displaced, their energetic plasmatic force is displaced from their body at that moment, and you have this other thing that's going to enter in, and it's super, super weird. But what's crazy is that like they want you to think that your mind and your memory and all this stuff is some chemical function that exists in this mush. But have you ever noticed how your brain is literally just all pipes of matter that go like this? It's because it's a specific antenna, to a hyper specific frequency. And if you change that antenna, then either different attributes or different things can happen, because other things can come in at that point. Or the signal gets distorted. You have intermittent connection, or all these different things. But think about all these poor suckers that froze their head in like cryogenically or something like that to try to reanimate in the future. Let's say that they were successful in doing something like that and it came back and it actually was subjectively like the same person, so to speak, right? Well, that's only because of the antenna still being intact to that same tune. You see, if you change the antenna, though, it's not that it's the brain that's holding it, it's the antenna. If you change the antenna, it could be somebody else entirely. Once you reanimate. So,
that's kind of crazy. One person could be in a coma state while the other one lives your life.
There's a lot of neurologists out there, like high, very, very smart neurologists, and neurosurgeons and stuff that believe that the consciousness does not exist within the head because of things that they've seen.
That's interesting. Huh. It's okay. There's an old Japanese rock. It looks like a pillar. It's hanging over water. It looks like it's just floating over the water. Okay. It's in this little cave area, right? And the story goes that when you become smart enough, you'll understand how this works. And he transferred his energy into the crystal of the rock. So he'll come back to life as soon as you figure out how that energy works and you can bring him back. But think about what you're trying to say. You've stored the thing of a comatose patient inside of something. And then now you're bringing it back out into an animated form. But then we look at Osiris, right? And the stories they talk about him. If he knew how to create the human form or he can transfer his consciousness between them, then it makes sense in the exact same way that story does. It's crazy to think about some of these things that we hear that sound so off the wall. But when you get down to the science of it, it actually works.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy stuff. Look at all the stuff that we're talking about. It's that you just tie what we were just talking about, but now tie that in with what we were saying earlier about the hormones and the different receptors and all the pathways and the geometries and the antenna and the different effects that you get, because everything is an antenna. The tree is an antenna. You are an antenna. Your nervous system is an antenna. Your brain is an antenna. These things come in, they plug in, they connect the circuits. new geometries, new energy exchange, different effect. This is how it goes.
Oh, Joe.
People aren't seeing it that way, and I'm not saying people here. I'm saying like, widely, they're subscribing to an entirely different
Okay.
base here. And they'll say you'll take that medicine and it'll plug into this receptor, and then they'll say that it's a chemical reaction in your body. What the fuck? What fucking chemical reaction is it? What chemical? What is the chemical doing? What is it doing? Changing the resonance of something, changing the geometry of something.
Okay, just hear me out. Jesus healed people by touch. Now think about that. If your plasma state in your body work like that, right? And you were able to get into your subconscious part of your mind, which is the bottom layer, and then you can get over into their frequency of their body and turn on a receptor in their body individually. Okay. Then it could actually turn on your healing process in your individual body that allows them to heal. Okay. But it could do it at a rapid rate because it uses ions to do it. So it puts it in a time dilation field where the wound can heal instantly. Think about how that works. If that's true, okay, and you know that Jesus did that, then you understand the process of transference in your plasma state to another individual and what it does, because he knew in Jesus what part of your body was broken, how to heal it, how to immediately do it, how to create the correct field in it. It's like a mastery of plasma inside of your body. It's you touch, it's done. Okay, you don't realize it's going on. He asks you just to be calm and still and listen. Okay, and then he does this. It goes into, can you turn water into wine? If you understood that same step, then you can ionize things and ferment grapes into wine. Okay, or you can even sit there and create the ionic layers in order to make the grapes themselves, in order to turn them into wine. You could take something in the water that it naturally produces and ferment it in order to make it the wine. It's a simple understanding of what goes on in plasma physics in order to do it. If you understand conversion rates in plasma and how it works, then it makes all the sense in the world. Was the goblet always filled with water? Was there residue in it? Was there something going on in it? Okay. It ties in completely, especially when you know that they say that Jesus was pure light.
I mean, this goes without saying, man, that like once you realize too that there's certain materials out there, that are derivative, of everything else. And I mean, hydrogen is derivative of everything. Is the derivative of everything, I should say. So what you end up realizing is if you have hydrogen, you have pure material potential, for matter structuring accumulation, and there's like you could make much more complex material, okay, by being able to charge, exchange, and structure ionized hydrogen molecules, and that's just simply the way it is. Like, I mean, everything could be built out of it, and hydrogen isn't the only one. There's many others, but that's where you have to turn to mathematics then a lot, because anything else, really can only structure in only other certain ways, whereas hydrogen, is it's the source code for the rest of everything that comes after.
It's the original imbalance.
It's the original imbalance. It's the prima materia. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because it always tries to achieve balance, so it pulls in another ion to the core and another ion to the outside satellite, and then what does it become? Was it helium? And you keep doing that process, and you start building this thing, and you start to realize something very simple. If I can add ions to something, I can change and mutate it.
Yep.
that's where it comes to. That's why I say exchange, how things build, the Russell scale. You start looking at it, you're simply adding and removing ions from the cores. So when you start saying, okay, no, it's a proton and neutron that's being in the center of an atom, it's not. It's an ion. You know how I know it's an ion? Because light creates the ion. We've seen it in all the RAV experiments, exactly how it forms out and how it builds out the energy levels around it. It's simply the ion, guys. It's the primordial, spark of energy.
That's why water is massive key to everything also with it, because water is often by means of which hydrogen uses to transmute right in front of your face without you even realizing through but what we would consider compounding most of the time. That's why it's almost a universal solvent to a certain degree. And if it's not a universal solvent, the only thing you have to do is add electromagnetism to it. Okay, and then it is absolutely a universal solvent, will dissolve anything over time, and why? Because oxygen that readily bonds with the hydrogen, okay, oxygen is the destroyer of matter, okay, and it breaks down, and then the hydrogen automatically wants to bond with it, and that's what it comes down to. So like the oxygen breaks it, and then the hydrogen bonds with it. Oxygen breaks it, hydrogen bonds with it, and that's the process that you see. And when you start adding current or energy or any sort of electromagnetism into the water, it's no longer is it water soluble, which most stuff is. Even if it doesn't seem like it, it's like this has been sitting in water for a while. It hasn't really done all that much. Well, give it some time, it will. Well, once you start adding the current into it, now it's reaching, able to bring it into the excitation point to then perform the electrolysis more effectively, which doesn't need water to occur, okay, but is more effective in the water as a carrier, because that's how these things all work. You have to have, the water in that basic form, okay, is kind of like the carrier wave. It's in a state of like collapse and potential for something else to ride along with it until it comes into interaction. So what does that mean? That means that it's allowing for the carrier of the energy to break the molecule, and then as soon as the molecule is broken, jump onto it and react. And then this is the process that's occurring over and over and over and over again forevermore.
It's funny because we don't relate it to the real world, so let's relate it. They sell water with higher ion levels because it's supposed to be beneficial to your body. They made a device a while back, a Tesla technique, the water smacker, which basically took the ions and put them into the water. They say it changes the pH level. Just understand this. We're still talking about the same thing. We're basically taking chemistry now and putting ions in chemistry in order to change things, and then people understand it's a different level.
Yeah, it turns the water alkaline.
Yeah, so why did the plasma channel fail sometimes when it comes to grow plants with the ions that it was trying to use? Because it used electromagnetism in there. It got past the point of being in a cold state, turned into a hot state, which means the two ions bonded to create the electromagnetic.
Cold state, alkali. Oh, wait.
There you go.
What are we talking about? The connection between all the things again? Like, I mean, I'm obviously not talking to our audience, but like, wake up, people,
Yeah.
That the hot state makes acid and that the cold state makes alkali? Do like, don't talk about that all too much?
Little basic chemistry there.
Funny thing is that we use the acid in a battery, an electrolyte, right, which is the analogy to the carrier wave, between the two metals to create the differentials, okay, to create a potential, right? That's it, a potential. Why? Because the potential is in the cold state. It's your yin to your yang. It's the alkali to the acid. The thing is that it's not, it's not formed that way. Then you do the inverse. You use an alkali, then you end up with a hot potential right out.
Okay, the yin and the yang is two ions going in a circle. It's your electromagnetic. It's the ion on each side pulling and pushing and spinning in a circle continuously. It's the formation of anything that you see as the atom. Okay, it's real simple, man. It's not that hard. It's two ions in the core moving in a spherical pattern in order to make it.
Right.
So,
and what's there the whole time? Plasma.
yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
That's the entire point. You see, the energy is only manifest, but for its interaction with matter. Its interaction with matter breaks it down into high excitation, goes into a diffuse state, to a plasmoid state. The plasmoid is a plasma, and then those loose plasmoids are ultimately the binding force of what's getting caught up in the material formation and structure based on the offset differentials of the beat frequency, creating cymatic organization of the crystallization process of the molecules, right? And then they lock into place because they become trapped and stable. Oh shit.
Well,
Like, whatever you do, just don't send me a Nobel Prize because I don't want it.
dude, solid matter is ions at rest. Okay, just understand that. That's all it is. They're not moving at a point where they're so fast anymore that they can be dissolvable.
It's not that they're in rest, though. I can't agree with that.
They're probably still energy state, but they're not in a state that you can overcome something. And I'll tell you why.
Hold tight. The ball video. They're in the ball video. It's the bounce. You see, bounce. Bounce looks still. Bounce is dampening. Okay, but bounce is it's still bouncing. It's just bouncing equally, right? So it's in a state of it's trapped and stable, and that's the point. You reduce the differentials to the point where they no longer act the same. So rather than have the one bouncy thing that bounces on the hard surface, you have two bouncy things, and the two bouncy things are caught up bouncing against each other, and that's them stable. They're locked into position. You got more bouncy things doing. But the thing is that it never stops bouncing. It's always wobbling back and forth.
What I'm trying to say is the vacuum state has gone down to such a level that it doesn't appear that there's motion going on in it. So therefore it appears like solid matter. Okay. And I'll say it this way. It's because of this effect that I see it, Joe. Ions are in everything. Okay. And they're dispersed throughout, but they don't show themselves until you put energy against it. Okay. A wire does not show itself until you put energy against it, and then it immediately responds, which means it's not completely dead, but it's not completely alive right now. You know what I mean? It's in one of those in-between states where it's not high enough energy state in order to change the matter around it. Okay. It's in a low density state where it can't do it yet, but it can be re-energized as soon as you put the electromagnetic field upon it on the wire. It re-energizes the ions in the center. Okay, it can become resistance to it because they're trying to bond with it. So when you see this as well is when you hit lightning on a rock. Okay, lightning hits a rock, right? As soon as it hits the rock, it goes through it, changes where the ions are patterned inside the rock. Okay, go back to that rock, hit it with a hammer, it goes ping, ping, not dud, dud, it goes ping, right? Why? Because it changed where it is, so it has a different harmonic inside of it, right? So it makes a different sound. It cannot go back to where it was, doesn't have enough energy. Right? It needs something to trap it to go back to that energy state.
Well, right. That's what I'm trying to say. That's a matter of coherence, right? So, you get the ping ping because the crystal structure is coherent. So therefore, it's literally resonating one molecule to the next, to the next, to the next. Therefore, you get constructive interference and you get ping ping ping. At that specific tone that it's resonating at. See, if it's certain other structures, it's not that they're incoherent because they're stable, but the coherence is not relative to that which they're dampening. Okay, so you end up with the bounce, and that tends to be the point. That's because the structure that stabilized it, the two things are incoherent with each other. That are as far as its structure is concerned geometrically. So that tends to kind of be the nuance. I had somebody in the chat mention girls on trampolines. This goes to show you, okay, how subjective the bounce is, okay, because it's so relative, okay. If you're off the trampoline looking at boobies on trampoline, okay, those things they're doing the thing, okay,
And then energy, yes.
doing the thing and they're doing the thing. But now if you get on the trampoline with said boobies and you guys are jumping at the same rate and looking at each other, the boobies aren't doing that. They're not, because relativistically, actually, nothing's changed. Okay, I'm dead serious. It's true.
I got an image in my mind, Joe. I'm sorry.
Well, I was imagining this while you were talking about the last thing.
Okay, let me explain my experience, because I told you I'd tell you about the bounce, and how you helped me out. Okay. Check this out. I created a Tesla coil that's a 1 megahertz Tesla coil, and out of it, I get 5 frequencies out of it. You say, okay, that's radio frequency, Nathan. Generally, in a Tesla coil, you turn it on, you got 1 frequency that works, okay? In this one, I took a cap bank, and I can flip in between each individual frequency of it. Now, that's just 1 coil, but I add a second coil to it with another cap bank, and I flip it. The first one is set to the highest one, the best one, right? I took the second one and set it to the second highest one, okay? You take another coil, put it to the third, to the fourth, to the fifth. I'm hitting the harmonic inside the coil, okay? Now, this is the thing. Each one of them in there is the beat frequency. So I got 5 frequencies. Each one of them is in alignment, okay, with it. Now, here's where the bounce comes. I'm trying to align everything in a straight line, okay? I want to shoot the gap. I want to, boom, hit everything straight up at one time in order to amplify it. But that's not what the bounce of Joe was telling me, right? He's telling me you got to be able to take the bounce from the first one, capture the energy, and push it into the second one, which captures the energy and pushes it into the third one, and keeps going like that until the discharge is way over the amount that it should be because of the captured energy. My thinking on it of just alignment is wrong. I'm not looking at the first bounce going in and how much kinetic energy I can push to the second level in order to get the second level kinetic energy. You get what I'm saying? So what you showed me in that video was the exact thing that I missed. I'm looking at it in a pure physical standpoint of alignment. You know, this must work because this must be the top of everything. But that's not what it's telling me. It's telling me that I'm losing the bounce halfway through and dropping my energy.
So it's funny because when we were talking about your Gravity Flyer originally, dampening, and when I say originally, I mean over a year ago at this point, like probably almost 2 years ago at this point. I brought up dampening as a major factor, in it. But the thing is that neither one of us thought of the application of dampening as far as waveform was concerned. But waveform dampening is an absolute thing, because that's exactly what dampening is in the first place, is all the relationship of waveforms and materials and energy. And realistically, it's whether you get constructive or deconstructive interference. It's whether or not something's going to act as a carrier wave or not, or drop into a scalar state. It's like all these different things that this dampening effect plays a massive role in as far as your O-scope readings are concerned. I mean, just plain simple and period. But I have a name in the chat that I don't recognize, but they asked the most profound question, although we kind of already said it in this episode, but I think it's worth glossing over it for them. When Ghost Speak says, how do you change one element to another? Okay, transmutation. How do you transmute things?
Change the ions in it.
Yeah,
That's a simple answer.
yeah.
Well, how do you do it? You have to ionize the material.
Exactly. So the answer is you have to break down the material by electrolysis with current. Once you get the breakdown of the material into their constituents, they have a charge bias. Then that charge by that will form plasma. Okay. Once you have plasma, okay, you need an energy exchange relationship at specific ratios between the energy that broke the matter apart in the first place. Okay. This ratio and frequency of exchange between A and B will be deterministic in the structuring of that plasma. Now, when you have all the types of electromagnetism present and you stabilize this plasmatic structuring, which, by the way, we've all experimentally proven out already. We have all the videos, all the photos, all the everything, right? You need it into a state of cavitation, okay? Because what ultimately needs to happen is there needs to be tunneling between the boundary layers of the different types of ions. The tunneling needs to happen during the states of compression. During those compressions, that'll lock the structuring in at the beat frequency that you have. So once you have the magnetic component at a high enough degree of magnetism, which is directly related to the amount of compression and the cavitation, then you end up with new material out of whatever it broke down. And that's as simple as anybody could explain such a thing. Like without just giving a one-word answer or saying it's not possible.
Oh,
So
let me do this. Okay, later tonight on Abnormal, we're going to be talking about pyramids and stuff. I'll say this: take the pyramid in Mexico, and you guys probably heard a million times. The ancients had the city of gold, and you think, "Oh my God, there's a city made of pure gold somewhere. I need to go find it." It's a misunderstanding of what they were saying. It's not the city of gold. It's the city that makes gold. Understand this. They take a pyramid, they take ionization from the atmosphere, which it absolutely does. Okay. It pulls it into the pyramid, and then the pyramid itself puts off a piezoelectric thing going into the mercury that was floating below. Okay. They are literally pulling ionization into that area with the mercury, and then they're taking the actual effect of piezoelectricity, which actually creates a ultrasound burst that goes into it and pulls it apart slightly in the magnetic field like this, and allows the ion to get in there in each one. It's not the city of gold. It's the city that makes gold. The way that pyramid is set up, it will absolutely do that. It's a misunderstanding in the way it was said in a translation that they couldn't understand. They went in somewhere where they didn't understand it and why any transfer process was happening, why they killed off everybody who knew about it. And then they burned all the documents, because if you can create gold, it then no longer is valuable. So let me just tell you the process right now. You could take ultrasound, you could take mercury, you'll make element I believe the ionization is 117, okay, or 137, something like that, 137, and you need 138 in there to create stabilized gold. Here's the problem. If you don't know exactly about the ionization process in this whole thing, you're going to create an unstable element, and then it's going to revert back to what it was. Okay? I'm not telling you how to make anything here. I'm just telling you the absolute science of it. They have a misunderstanding and ancient technology going to the people who took it over, and they didn't get it. And they look for a city of gold somewhere when they had it right in front of their faces based on all the processes that goes on in physics.
magnetohydrodynamics is very, very key to a lot of this. But the thing about magnetohydrodynamics is that it's easily seen in liquid mercury, okay, but it's also more effectively produced, electrolytically, if you could figure it out. And that's sort of the key, because electrolytically, it's a finicky dish. You know,
Mhm.
the difference is that water, okay, has the constituent components, okay, which has more potential for matter construction, meaning you could make anything out of water. The problem is that water is not wonderfully conductive, okay? And in order to make it more conductive, you have to add an electrolytic, component to it for it to reach the energy density levels needed to be effective at the electrolytic process. That addition of that chemical in there, okay, is a big thing to overcome, because those are highly reactive chemicals that go directly into the purity of the water and bind with the water molecules right off, which then decreases its ability to be able to have transmuted properties. So it's this difficult thing with water that has a much higher potential to create transmutation, whereas MHD, on the other hand, can't create as much material, but there are certain materials it can create. One of them being gold, right? And that's because of the math again of its component structures of electrons, protons. Um, because it's naturally conductive and a room temperature liquid, you have all the components right then and there to cymatically induce transmuted components, which is why mercury, by the way, amalgamates other metals. Okay, it's why it amalgamates other metals. Don't you get it? Like, I mean, that's pure and simple the way it goes. And once it's amalgamated, did you notice how they were never hesitant to put silver amalgam in your tooth, in your mouth? Okay, but like, you can't eat too much fish because of the mercury that is like the small, like, it changes it. You get it?
Yeah.
And that's what it does. Now, here's the thing, and I mean, fuck. I kind of lost my train of thought. I had something profound to say, and I'm gonna think of it. But
Okay.
here, it was a question.
Okay.
Ancient times, right? They've made 24 karat gold, this and that. Okay. Ancient times to modern times, they accumulated mass bullion, the coin, the bar, the whole 9 yards. They were moving this shit around the world for longer than we ever know. Where the fuck did it all come from? Where are the mines? Where did it come from? Have you ever been watching an archaeologist, an archaeology show on the History Channel, and they're like, and in this ancient ruins, we found a gold pan? Oh, this is the mountain that they used to pull all the fucking gold out of? Have you heard it one time? Because you haven't.
No.
Not one fucking time ever.
King Solomon's mines were copper. They weren't gold. He
More
traded it.
fucking gold came out of the ancient world than we ever fucking found in recent history. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. And yet, not one archaeologist is like, and here's the gold mine where the fucking Aztecs pulled all the gold from. Not one fucking time.
Oh, it's so great because it's so true.
Ever. And it's upsetting because transmutation doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, come on. The gold came from somewhere, all right. You know
Well,
what I mean?
it changes your understanding of history once you change the words to the correct ones. See, that's the whole thing. We're misinterpreting a lot of stuff, and when we start doing that, because we don't have the science to back us, it ruins us. We're just not realizing what's going on. But once you put the science to it, then the words start to make sense. You go, city of gold or city that makes gold? Well, it obviously is making the gold because we're going to use the same process to do it anyway. City of gold? No, not necessarily. You know what I mean? There's no gold pyramid somewhere. It's a legend. You know what I mean? So they didn't see it the same way we did. Okay,
Right.
they didn't have anywhere to spend the gold. They were doing it for other reasons. You know what I mean? You could take that for what you will. Did an alien land and say, "Hey, make this gold"? Sure. Did ancient Atlantis come by and say, "Hey, we need some gold, buddy, dig it up"? You know what I mean? I don't know. You know, Anunnaki come by, knocks on their door, says, "We're going to build a pyramid here. It makes gold. By the way, when we're done, you can use it for yourself."
Well,
Who knows?
there's more to gold too than meets the eye, and frankly, I'm not even going to claim that I know what it is, but it has something to do with matter, being in a stable form. Okay,
The
that
acoustics
much
of it.
that much I know. Okay, and if you think about what I've said, okay, about material being able to trap energy, okay, you think about gold. It's dense, okay, and it's infallible. Okay, you can't like you could pound it and pound it and pound it so thin that it's a molecule, thick and still holds together. There's no other metal you could do that with. You could sit there and expose it to any plethora of environmental conditions. It will not tarnish. It will not oxidize. Do you know what's resistant to oxygen in this world? Fucking basically gold.
Yeah.
All right. And when you break it down, you realize this is resistant to oxygen also. Okay, cool. Can you pound it in molecule thick? No, you can't. Okay, move on. And you start to realize very quickly that it has all of these very hyper specific attributes, okay, that allow it to maintain its integrity down to the smallest level and be impermeable. And that means that it is probably the most efficient material energy trap that
Mhm.
exists. And that's where its power lies, you see, is because you can, in physical form, hold dense energy, and have it permanently. And what does that matter? Well, energy exchange.
Yeah.
See, gold must then have a high energy exchange, and that means that its vibration must be very high. You ever notice how things that are high vibrational you're attracted to, and things that are low vibrational you stay the fuck away from?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, people tend to like gold. A lot of people. Gold
Yeah.
tends to make people feel good. Why? It's only a thing. Well, I mean, this is why you're in its presence. It's a high energy state. Stable, like you get it. And this is why the common folk never got it, no matter how much they can make. Okay. And they just wanted to make more and more and more, and then keep it for all the people that had the wisdom of how.
I wonder what the ion state of gold is. I didn't look it up. I should have. It
Stable. That's what it is. You can't break it down, really. You could gold plate things, and break it apart that way, the same as anything else, right?
well, hold on. I mean this like
But
this.
but the gold doesn't break down. It doesn't get lost or whatever in the process. It just simply
Right.
goes from one to the next.
But let me say this: mercury is like a liquid metal, right? But then gold is super pliable, so it makes sense that they're close to the same family and ion level. Okay, that if you transfer an ion over, you could basically change the thing to where it's malleable, right, easily, but it's not in the liquid state.
Mhm.
And that's what I mean by the ion layer inside of it. What does it look like in each one of them? And I'm sure once you compare them, you'll find the answer right away why it actually works.
Well, I don't know because I don't have it right in front of me. But if you look at all the elements that are broken up in the other chart, the one where it goes like this, right? I'm pretty sure that they're in the same octave, right? So they're
Oh,
in the same octave, but a different key.
okay.
And what that means is that they're not resonant with one another, which is why one breaks down into the other, and and why you can make one out of the other is because they're in, they're not in resonance, but they are in the same key. I'm pretty sure. Where does it fall on the periodic table? Like, I don't have it memorized or anything.
Oh man, yeah. It's just so interesting, Joe, how it all floats together once you know the key. Once you understood that the ion level and how to get to it, now it all starts to make sense. So the Russell scale of the atomic table is absolutely right. Just so you understand this, it's a different way to look at everything. And what it does, and this is why physics hates it, it makes everything a mechanical system that works perfectly without the exotic math. You throw out 90% of the exotic math that doesn't work, and it makes it a purely mechanical system.
All right, so on Russell's scale here, gold and mercury are right next to each other. Yeah. Gold is 79 and mercury is 80, and it's in all the same octave as a whole bunch of other shit, but it's
so we take an ion,
thallium, tungsten's in there too.
So we basically have to take an ion to the core, and we have to take it to any satellites that it has on it, and then add them to it. And once you do it, you're going to change the element. That's it.
Because if you look at where it falls on his chart, right? Which is like a discharging system, right? Right-handed. And then you look that it's toward the bottom, but not quite all the way at the bottom. It falls like right with like gallium and stuff like that as an analogy, which actually tends to make a lot of sense, because tell you what, gallium's not all that different than gold. Actually, I gotta take a leak really bad. I'll be right back.
Oh, dude, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, gallium's a low temperature heated material as well.
And a soft metal, yeah.
Huh. It's funny they're all in the same family because they're doing the exact same process, which means anytime you see similarities in things, it's best to track them down. Find out why. What's the relationship that goes on? I'll make this point, guys, so that you guys understand this. When I say mechanical system, just understand this. If you just take out all these fancy words of everything and you start just saying they're ions in the core, right? If I say an atom's no longer proton, neutron, just understand this. We have ions spinning in one direction. They're all clustered together. They love to cluster in everything that they do, okay? What happens when you have too many ions in the core of something? It wants to explode. How do you stop it from exploding? You take one of the ions here and flip the direction. So now you have this that's going on like this with a rotational field like this. Then this one over here flips. Now you have a rotational field that goes like this along with one that goes like this. What happens when the pressure gradient gets bad again? Another one flips. Then you have this field. You have this field. Then you have this one going on. What does that mean? You've created the atomic structure automatically by just flipping an ion direction. The vector direction of the ion flips. So what you have now is a self-sealing structure. One rotational rate, one rotational rate, one rotational rate. It all seals in coupling. So when I talk about high voltage coupling, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you I'm creating a sealed envelope in capacitance that doesn't allow things to move based on that boundary layer. Now you can start to see when it builds out an atom what it's actually doing. On each one of those layers, it builds out a little satellite from it. Why? Because as ions form in there, it makes that little loop in there as they go, and they go cross direction from each other, okay? They're creating that spot, or at the highest spot of the resonance, it's going to create that little node, okay? That's the important part. We see it in Tesla coils where you have a node, but that's exactly what it's doing. Now we build out an atom. I have now just taken that, just so you know, I've taken out all the exotic physics, all the exotic math, and I've made it a purely mechanical structure. What does that mean? That means that now I've just matched the atomic level to the plasma that you're creating in your garage as a purely mechanical system. I have now taken it to the planetary level and told you I'm creating a purely mechanical system. No exotic math. I don't need it. It works perfectly. Let me say this. When you have something that works perfectly, and then it makes everything in transmutation and mutation and different ion levels to create it, and it works correctly, you must invoke Occam's razor. The simplest answer must be the right one. Therefore, all the exotic stuff goes away. We have a mechanical system. And that's why Joe and I always tell you, it's all the same thing.
Oh,
Because
hold on.
all a mechanical system.
I'm going to give you another equivalent of it's all the same thing, and this is not something that I knew until right this moment. All right, and I again pulled up Walter Russell's periodic table. I had said a couple of moments ago, Mercury is under gold, okay, on that scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at the analogy according to Walter Russell himself, okay, and if you go up to the next analogy octave, which is the 7th. So we're going from the 9th with gold and Mercury up to the 7th octave with gallium and zinc. Okay. And now I looked up the relationship between gallium and zinc. All right. And get a fucking load of this. You can't make this up. All right. Gallium is one of the few metals that melts in the human hand. We knew that. Okay. So it's at the cusp of a liquid metal. Okay. If you're in a warm enough climate, it's liquid. Okay. Like if you're in California during the middle of the day outside, it's liquid. All right. So let's bear that in mind. All right. When liquid gallium comes into contact with solid zinc, it causes a phenomenon called liquid metal embrittlement. The gallium rapidly diffuses into the grain boundaries of the zinc, disrupting its internal metallic bonds and causing the zinc to become extremely brittle and easily crushed into a powder. Okay, what does that sound like? It sounds like amalgamation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's not a powder. It turns into gum that ultimately solidifies once it's set. Okay, but the point here is the same exact thing. You have two metals that are more or less, arguably, liquid at room temperature, or warm room temperature. And then you have an instantaneous molecular chemical reaction between the two of one of them diffusing into each other. Why? Because they are the same on the same points of the scale. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by same points of the scale? If you look at Walter Russell's periodic table, you will see that there are, call it clockwise and counterclockwise, or right-handed and left-handed, whatever you want to call it, but that's how it goes. Okay, and then you have charging systems and discharging systems. So the gold and Mercury are on the 9th octave discharging system, okay, which is counterclockwise or right-handed. Okay, and then if you go up, you notice the 7th octave has that same point. Okay, now what's interesting is you could do it again. You can go up to the 5th octave discharging system, and look, and it's oxygen and nitrogen.
Okay, Joe, just understand this. 2 vortexes, okay? Resonance in both, where one hits its amplification, this one hits its low point, okay? And then it reverses. As this one hits its amplification, this one hits its low point, right? It's an imbalance. This one is paired, this one's unpaired. This one has, more ions and it's paired. Exactly. This one has one less. And then you get to both sides of the scale. So you're literally looking at it, on both sides. You're just not realizing he's talking about a vortex. This goes back to that same geometry question we was asked earlier. Where do you see the geometry? It's right there. It's right in front of you. That's why Russell drew it in everything that he did. And he called it male and female. One's paired, one's unpaired. What is it? We have male, probably the unpaired, and then we have the female that's paired. It's how you understand things.
So you want to lose your shit? Go up to the next rung on this, okay? Like I said, fifth octave, oxygen and nitrogen. Immediately what comes to mind is nitrous oxide. I just placed in here, you know, how would you reasonably make nitrous oxide? And its answer, more or less, is that it's synthesized, okay, by using ammonium nitrate, okay, in a thermal process, because the thermal will cook off the ammonia, right? And water vapor, okay, in that heated condition, meaning that you need the liquid. That's the whole point. You need the liquid, one in a liquid form, to meet the other into the the ammonium nitrate form, which is solid. Okay, and that's how they form nitrous oxide. You know, I would say that if it was practical to have lots of liquid oxygen, which is obviously possible but not practical, right? They could just do it directly at that point. You know,
So you said oxide. So basically, you're doing the same thing in a battery, right? The
well, you
acid
need the
base
nitrogen to be
relationship.
in a solid state. So to get obviously, you know, liquid nitrogen is fucking cold as fuck. I mean, to then get it into a solid state is highly impractical. You know, so but if you could take liquid oxygen and then put it onto solid nitrogen, you would have an amalgamation of nitrous oxide.
Hmm.
See the point?
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Oh
And what does
man.
that mean? That means that that means that nitrogen and oxygen are metallic in nature. Oh.
Hmm.
You see what I mean?
Metallic in nature with oxygen. It's why it structures under radiation.
It's why it alloys with every other metal making
Well, yeah, that.
oxide.
Well, they use oxides in your transistors every day.
Oxides are key, bro. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
really are. Why? Because it takes your metal and then brings it up that periodic table chart closer to hydrogen. You see? Ooh, interesting.
It all comes back to that every time.
Yeah, doesn't it? It's all the same, folks.
Yeah. This is an interesting conversation today, Joe. This is like way out, you know what I mean? Beyond, I think I think a lot of people in our chat get it. I hope everybody that listens to it, it starts to snap something in their brain to understand, hey, everything's related. And as soon as you start looking at all the relationships of everything starts to fall right in the line. You know what I mean? Whether it's chemistry, whether you're looking at melting things or whatever, however you want to look at it, how you build things out of plasma, how it transfers. I mean, there's even scientists that talk about the snowflakes and how the memory in there and all the frequencies go in there and how it builds a snowflake in geometrical patterns. And it builds it based on information of the geometry. I mean, it's all absolutely true. It's 100% the same technology. Sean does it all the time. He sits there and takes the plasma, puts it into his little piece of pot and clay, and then he's building geometrical structures right out of it. I mean, it's insane how fast it goes, and it's not on our level. That's the thing. You got to remember, it is not on our time dilation level. We are on a different time than it is. It's going so much faster because the time dilation in it is different. Basically, I'm saying we're in this time, it's in this time, okay? And we ain't in the same time, buddy, okay?
Not at the same time. Agreed.
Not the same time at all.
It's local and relative.
Yes.
And guess what? All the things that dilate time that much, you can't partially enter into. You will be dematerialized. Go ahead, touch that fucking rab. I dare you.
That's why you need a shell.
Yeah, touch the rab. Don't touch the rab. Listen,
Yeah.
if you ever saw the rab, you'd
You
be
never
in
touch it.
law, and you would never in a million years touch. Like, you know how many times I wanted to stick a fucking wooden skewer into the rab? You know, like I'm sitting there looking at this thing. And I'm like, dude, I want to stick a wooden skewer into this right now and just see what goes. And I'm just like, I am literally afraid to.
Dude,
I'm
it's
literally afraid.
Joe, it's like the sun went off in your room. You're like blinded. You're like, getting free LASIK.
The thing is that if you put, and I'm convinced of this, if you put something into the RAV, one of two things is going to happen. Either the RAV is going to push away from it and not let you. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually think that that's a very stern possibility.
I know
Because looking at Sean's experiments, Sean goes poking around, dumping all sorts of shit on the RAV, but he never sticks anything in it. But he'll pour water on top of it and this and that. And if you notice, it always displaces and moves away. It's like, I'm not part of this. You know, you just put more density in here, and I'm not part of that. So it's like, but if you were to actually stick something inside, I'm not sure anything's coming out. I'm not sure you're gonna be. It would be a very non-traditional thing, like not the same as sticking it into fire or something. If it's a wooden skewer, you're not. I don't believe that you're going to see a charred end. I think that you're going to see that a lot of it disappeared.
If you can make it to the core, yeah. I don't know, Joe. I'm gonna have to try it now. Now, you know what? Kind of like you, dude.
Yo, I'm a retard, bro, and I'm sitting there like I wasn't gonna have to fucking do that.
It's because I looked at it and it was like pure sunlight coming at me, and I'm going, well, I really don't want to play with that. You know what I mean? You're just looking at it funny, and then you go, well, why don't you stick something in it? And I'm going, well, yeah, why not? And then I'm thinking of Sean's plasma. Remember how it came off the side of the table and was just hanging there? I'm thinking, I'll stick a stick in that. You know what I mean? That might be educational. Cut it and see what it does. Because it sucks back up. But what if you cut it? Does it mean it's going to separate in solid, or is it just going to disappear? I mean, dude, blowing my mind.
That's what I'm saying. Hold on. So, I'm sure Sean sent you the transmutation video, right? With the structuring. It was today. He sent it to me at least.
Oh, on the outside of the glass?
It was in a tube or something, and it was accumulating all up in there. Let's show everybody that, because that's.
Give me a second, I'll look it up. He was sending me something when I came on.
Yeah, I could send it to you if you don't have it. He sent it maybe like less than an hour before the show. It wasn't in the group chat. He sent it to me, like on the side.
Yeah, hang on. I think I got it. This one?
Yeah, Robert, we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't know, man. They all look very similar, and it's too small on my screen to see. I don't know. It might be it.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, you just saw it burst out of there. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Here goes,
look
it
at
sucks back in. Look, it sucks back in.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we're looking at the flare because
oh, dude, that's the energy exchange. Come on, that was awesome.
The energy exchange. I'm saying. I know.
Here we go. It's going to turn, and then it looks like it busts right out of it. There we go. Boom. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I don't know. Sean sent me a video that, like, when I was able to zoom in on it good, you saw all the structuring and it's locking into place right in the tube. It was really, really incredible. I didn't even have time to like analyze it fully or anything, but he was really blown away by what he saw. He said he'd never seen anything like it. We have multiple RAVs in this circumstance, which is actually it's not surprising because he's got it so well tuned at this point that these RAVs are forming at all the bias layers. So if you look, right, you see that there's 3, all right? And this is important, all right? So follow me here. This is the ratio, okay? So you have basically a little bit more than 2/3, okay, anodic energy, okay? And then at that boundary layer, you have a RAV. All right, you have a RAV on the top exchange, the middle exchange, and the bottom exchange. And the spacing between it, okay, is the ratio of the energy density exchange. between the anode and the cathode.
Hmm.
So that's important stuff, because what does this go back to? This goes back to 2/3 and 3 seconds. With a total of 2, right?
Mhm.
With 0.6666 and 1.444 as the ratio relationship between anode and cathode. And then what you see is your central RAV, and your central RAV probably sits at a 4.75 of ninths. 4.75 ninths, whatever that math is. Because go back to the chart in which I've been talking about for over a year now.
Yeah.
And nobody else figures this shit out. And that's not a pat on my shoulder, but ain't nobody looking at that Tesla 369 shit know what the fuck is going on. Like, but that thing sits at 4.75.
Huh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. I'm looking at the color scaling in this. There's that. Hey, that purple, that dark color, it shows up right in here all day. That's just crazy. But all that normally wouldn't be seen. You see, it's a higher energy state of UV is what we're looking at. And you see the green in it.
Yo, I'm gonna shit on the world right now. This is so fucked up. I'm sorry to digress. I see the green, by the way, and the blue and the red shift, and how it's bifurcated, but because that's wild and super interesting. But what I'm about to say is fucking mind blowing. Okay, 4.75 ninths
Okay.
is 0.5277. Do you know what
Okay.
5280 is?
What?
Is the feet in a mile.
Interesting.
And again, these are the ratios with the imperial system that I keep on talking about. It's because it works off of, it works off of 12 parts. And 12 is 3 and 6. Get it?
Yeah.
Right. But 5280 sounds like it's pulled out of a pulled out of a hat, doesn't it? Who decided 5,280 is in a mile, and a mile is an imperial measure and whatnot? Well, I mean, 277 is 5280.
It's a way to remember it through time, Joe, without knowing what it was.
Yeah. And the deviation comes because the 12 has to compensate for the step up from a 9 count to a 10 count. So 5280 is actually accurate. Okay, when you would take into consideration the step up from a 9 count to a 10 count. So you gain fractions every single time because it's a small percentage. What is that percentage? 0.333. Well, you add
Everything's
0.333 and then you end up with the 8. You see, it's not coincidence. It's exactly what I've been saying. 9 count transition to 10 count. That's why it's 4.75 ninths and not 4.5 ninths as a half, right? It's not. It's because the 9 shift to the 10 shift it averages out in between 4.75. Crazy shit, man.
It is. Here's another one. I think I need to connect you, Joe, with somebody that I talked to before because he's gonna love your math. It's the same guy that helped Rodin with all of his coils and the math in them. It'd be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, man. Let's have them on.
Yeah, Sean does some wild stuff, man. Oh, I see the black dot.
Yeah, I see that
Oh,
too.
I got excited. Always get excited when I see it. Okay. You see right here. Let me click on this. If you can see it right here is the dot right here for the plasma. Here's the black one right behind it.
Yep. It's the inverse.
It's the energy exchange.
And
Goes right to the center.
Energy exchange, red blue shift, offset differentials all day.
Dude, I got to tell you this so we all understand. This matches stories right now in the, how do I say, astronomy. They're looking at something that looks like a plasmoid or a sun sitting out in the middle of nowhere, right around our solar system, right? And they can't figure it out. And they're always looking for Planet X. Well, let me just tell you, we just answered the question.
Oh, fuck.
So when you see that thing out there, that's a Sumerian second sun. Okay. That's the energy exchange going on. The black dot, Planet X. It's the other side, the black dot. It's the one that you cannot see with the telescope, but it puts out all the energies the same way and has a bunch of gravity to it, and it manipulates everything around it. It's both sides. It's exactly what they're looking for in astronomy, but they can't find it. You see, it creates it naturally.
Bro, bring that picture back up for a second, because I think I just saw, like, do you see the dynamic relationship, okay, between the blue and the red? Okay, that's the ratio of energy. It's like I'm coming up with this off the top of my head, but it just seems to make sense to me. Okay, that's the rate. That's representative of the rate of energy exchange at a given time. Okay, because it's again representative of what we would consider past and future. Okay, being separated and brought in, and that measure of time, okay, would be deterministic of how much future versus how much past is present. Now, if things are slowing down, there should be a big redshift. Okay. If things are speeding up, it should be primarily blue. Okay. And, in this particular case, it looks like there's a blue offset bias. So it would be speeding things up. That's my opinion. Like, I mean, is there a way to prove that? Fuck no. Not a chance in hell to prove it. But you want to know something? That, if you look at the geometry that's being formed here, okay. In fact, I have a photo that I ought to share with you guys. That's very similar to this. Okay. Nathan, I'm going to take 1 second. I'm going to see if I can send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll be right back.
Yeah, not a problem. Look at that rainbow. Look at that. All the colors in the rainbow. There's no getting around it. What it's doing, it's layering. We always talk about that, guys. Is it layering? As you see the different colors, you're seeing the layers in itself. Each layer has a different frequency, which means it's a different color, and it's automatically telling you it's there. That's amazing.
All right. I sent that to you. So check this out. So if we could agree that clouds are plasma, okay, I want you to see this photo that I took this morning. Bright and early, 5 a.m.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay. But look at what's going on. There's literally an energetic fucking ring with pure blue sky. Okay. And it was that blue
layer.
Yeah. It's exactly what you see in this photo is exactly what I saw with my eyes.
Hold on. If that was purple, I would swear it looked like plasma.
It is plasma. It's clouds.
That's amazing.
What do you think clouds are?
No, I'm just saying.
plasma.
I'm just saying, if I'm looking at it into a lab, like it looks like a ring that you're swinging around. You know what I mean? When you do your Tesla coil, and it creates that fiery looking plasma that comes off it. That's the exact same look.
If you look at the mountain on the left, it's completely embedded in a cloud. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And the clouds broke just this way, and it was absolutely phenomenal because things don't do that. I wish I could have got the whole entire thing because it was a ring. But I thought I got it, but I guess I didn't. It was a pretty awesome frigging picture, so I wasn't going to mess with it. But, take my word for it. It goes like this. It was awesome. It was the bluest sky I've ever seen in the middle of it. The bluest.
Dude, that's
But
amazing.
the sun wasn't even up yet. It was dark, man, basically, still.
Huh.
And I was, there was still like a heavy, like, I live in the mountains. It's like the mornings are kind of like, I wake up and it's like clouds and that I'm in the cloud, you know.
Dude, you got a good looking area around you, man. You live in a nice place.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like it.
That's awesome. Dude, I always thought, so my ignorance, I always thought New York was like the city. So you just go in there and you're taking a crap while you're washing the dishes, while you're cooking breakfast. You know what I mean? It's all that small in a little apartment, like a closet. Little did I know that they had, wooded areas in New York,
I mean,
because I never see them on the news.
yeah. So check this out. I mean, it's like, New York City itself is like, it's the smallest. Like, it's ridiculous. It's like, it doesn't even have a big footprint. It just has a huge population, right? And I mean, originally I'm from Long Island, so it's very populated there too. In fact, the most populous town in the entire country is on Long Island. And then it's broken down into much smaller hamlets, right?
Mhm.
But you get the point. It's very, downstate down there is very populated. Where I live in the middle of nowhere, and most of the state is like this. Like you have the Catskill Mountains, and then you have the Adirondack Mountains, and then everything in between the Adirondacks and the Catskills is basically either going to be, mountainous and valleys, or lakes, and it's all wooded. And not for anything, but the biggest park in the entire world is in New York. It's Adirondack Park. It's a park so big that you literally have towns and houses and things that go on in the park's radius. It takes up the upper third of the state. It's absolutely massive, and
Nice.
most of it is protected and or undeveloped. Like, I mean, I live literally between mountains on this side and mountains on that side, and I live in like the little space in between. There's literally the mountains right outside, obviously. Right, I'm right at the base of that mountain. It's not a big
Yeah.
one, but pretty big.
That looks nice, man. Yeah, he's got it right here. Beautiful.
Yeah, everything's far as hell, man. You want a fucking cup of coffee or some shit, and I could drive like 15 minutes.
Nice. Yeah, I live in basically a desert, man. You have to, the valley. So you have to go over the mountain in order to get to the ocean.
Yeah, right on. Everything's got its pluses and minuses. I mean, honestly, it's like winter is like half the year. Like dead ass. Like end of October, like mid October is going to start cooling down fast. And end of October, don't be surprised if you get like a dusting of snow. November, like you start getting into like that whole, yeah, it's coming thing, and whatever. Some days are better than others, and then it lasts all the way through like April. So like November to April is basically like, and then after April, I mean, it ain't that great either. Let's put it this way: I only got plants in the ground, like pepper plants, tomato plants, and that sort of thing. I had to plant them in like May, and they're still tiny. I'm like, what the you know, it's a wildly different climate, even though I lived in the same state most of my life, you know,
Mhm.
like totally different climate than where I came from, where you could put stuff in the ground in like, early mid-April or whatever. And by now, I mean, I'd be picking stuff. All my plants are still this big and the goats just keep on friggin' eating it. Goddamn
Oh
goats.
my God. So Paul and I do this. Dispatch, my next door neighbor, man. We he was growing for many years awesome cantaloupe. Okay, and the gophers would come over and just bite the heads off of his plants. He gets so pissed about it, right? So, but he did this awesome thing, man, and created a huge vine in his backyard. And I'm talking, Joe, it's got to be like 15 feet in radius, maybe bigger. And he's got this whole thing going on, man. Totally awesome process. But he did the same thing, man. He started to take 2 liter bottles and then cover over the plant. You know what I mean? In order to get like a greenhouse effect going on. And it seemed to work really well.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome that you could do that. I mean, that's like an exotic fruit to for me to be thinking about,
Yeah. Well,
But I buy it at the supermarket.
it grows out here, man. And then zucchini grows out here like crazy. So if you put up a zucchini plant, man, or should I say squash, and then it just, dude, everywhere. It grows so many, they get humongous fast. So yeah, corn grows like crazy out here. Um, what else? Dude, we do a bunch of stuff out there. Spinach grows really well if you take care of it. And then Brussels sprouts grow really well.
Mm,
Oh, beans, all the peas and stuff. Oh, extremely fast. So yeah,
yeah.
dude, little
Look
different
at that,
climate out
man.
here.
The crops grow, like, from what I understand, like, I mean, the crops grow great here. I just don't think that I've gotten used to this, this, whatever they call it. Like, I used to like live in like, 6 or 7 or something like that, like planting range,
Mhm.
and now I'm pretty sure I'm in like subarctic subarctic planting. So like I don't know, like I'm just doing what I know, and I'm just like, fuck, I need to go to the store and get some Miracle Grow because this shit ain't happening. The soil's good here though. When we get sunlight, like real good, like where I have my stuff planted, dude, direct sunlight from the moment it crests to the moment it goes down.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, that's optimal. That's optimal, but it's like, my God, the stuff went into the ground so late. I'm just like sitting here waiting for something to happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we get a lot of crows if you do the corn. They'll eat it before you can get to it.
Yeah.
So I tried one year. Paul told me it wouldn't work, and I go, okay, well, let me try it anyway. And then he was right. Here comes the birds, man. They just destroyed it. I think I got one piece of corn out of all of it. Oh well.
Yeah.
Fun adventure growing
Paul says
stuff.
I'm lucky not to have golfers. Yeah, who says I don't? I mean, they're freaking everywhere, dude.
Oh
Like,
God. Dude, those gophers, they tormented him. They were so bad, man. They come over and eat everything.
yeah, I was making
And
a joke.
rabbits.
I don't know if you ever saw the movie like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Classic. Well, it was like I always say, like, because I live right on, like, it's my backyard and the woods, and the woods go up the mountain, right? There's like mountain and woods, and shit always comes out of the woods, right? And I always say it's like, oh, it was like what lives in the woods. I'm like bears and rhinos and shit, It's like,
Rhinos.
but you got to do the thing, bears and rhinos and shit. With the horn. Fucking absolutely ridiculous. It's like
Oh,
rhinos. I'm like, yeah, what? You never saw the movie Pups? What can I tell you? I'm sorry if you don't get the reference. I'm like, not my fault that you're,
oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, man, there's all sorts of fucked up shit over here, man. It's like legit. I saw a dead wolf on the side of the road. Do you see? It'd be like, there's no wolves here. And I said about the wolves earlier about the coyote wolf. This was not a coyote wolf. This was a wolf. This thing weighed 170 pounds. It had a tail about this big. You know, the thing was silver with a black stripe down its back. You know, with a goddamn muzzle this long. Like that thing was a wolf.
Wow.
Period. Like you know, it's got the black bears and stuff, but you know, they're pussies compared to the brown ones. But you know, like you don't want to tangle with that either, man. Sometimes some of those things get like 500-600 pounds.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like it doesn't matter what you know what you are, and I mean not for anything. A 600-pound freaking animal with like claws and teeth, like fuck that.
Yeah, no thanks. That would not be my fun time. No.
Well, here the cryptid around here though is the Black Panther. Okay,
A Black Panther?
yeah, they'll say that. Okay, well, if you have mountain lions there, they're transient. They don't live in New York anymore. We killed them all. But then they keep on finding them dead everywhere, and people see them all the time. Um, and people have countless videos of them. But regardless, I mean, aside from the mountain lions that don't live here, there's people that will tell you very matter of factly that black jaguars somehow unknowingly they live here. It's a cryptid thing to a certain degree, but I'll tell you what, there's much more likely that there's some kind of black jaguar living up here and just keeping things on the DL, you know, than Mothman. Yeah, you know, and like they made a statue for that motherfucker, like straight up. You know,
Mothman.
they're right. They made him a statue and stuff, and it's like, yo, you ain't got no Black Panthers in New York. Get out of here. It's like, okay.
Do they have a statue of like Sasquatch or Bigfoot out there?
I don't know, man. I'm a big Bigfoot fan. I've never seen it, but you know, but what's funny is that people do have, and like I've actually wanted to make one of these for a while. They have the Bigfoot silhouette, and they paint it black, and then like put it on their lawn. You know, like half in a tree, sort of thing.
That's
Like
pretty
people
cool.
do that all over here because it's like good jokes because you know that you're into boonies. You know, it's like if you're gonna see Bigfoot, it's probably here. You know.
Oh,
But-
Sierra Mountains, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, apparently they're big naysayers on the whole Black Panther thing. But I've talked to multiple people who have seen them with their own eyeballs, and they're like, yeah, they're like it's big and it's black. There's no doubt about it. So okay, that's what you said though.
Some rich person's cat got out. They're like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like oh, who was it? Mike Tyson's tiger in that movie, Hangover.
The Hangover.
He punched that guy out, man. That was hilarious, dude. Oh,
Yeah, it's funny.
that
Oh, my
movie
God.
was great.
Yeah, dude. They return it in the convertible.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah.
Oh, they tried to knock it out with the pills and the big steak.
Yeah, for real.
That was so
What would
great.
you do if you're in Vegas? You open up your friggin' bathroom door and you're taking a piss, and all of a sudden you see like a tiger while you're in the middle of taking a piss. Like, probably take a shit too.
Well, dude, and they took it when they were drunk. They showed the video of it when they were drunk and they took it. That was even worse. The guy was peeing in his pool.
Oh.
As Mike Tyson's sitting there looking at him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. They're watching the surveillance video. It's like, oh. But that whole like, what would you do if you see a tiger while you're taking a piss and you probably shit yourself thing? It reminds me of this fucking comedy sketch that I saw back in the day. It was Artie Lang. You know, he used to be on Howard Stern all the time.
Oh
Artie
yeah.
Lang was a funny motherfucker. And you know, there was this one part, and I think it's because I used to smoke a lot of weed back in the day and everything was funny. But you know, like he did this skit. He's like, have you ever been in the woods taking a shit while you're on heroin? I'm like,
No.
I'm sitting there like, no, but I couldn't stop fucking laughing. And he's like, you know how your hands make a bridge? You know what I mean? He's like, well, you ever get into that bridge and then pull your pants up? You know, and it was like, this, you know, fucking Artie, man, he's a disaster.
That's
Fucking
funny,
dude was a
man.
disaster of life, bro. I'm shocked he's still alive.
Oh, yeah, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. Good times. We have now officially went off the rails at 2 hours,
Oh yeah,
59 minutes, and 13 seconds.
it took a long time today. We did good.
Yeah, we did it right.
Yeah, we've had a really good show, Joe. Dude, it's one of the best.
Oh, dude, it is the best, man. This is, plasma is everything. It holds everything together. It's you, it's your consciousness. If the plasma all went away, everything would fall apart into the still of originality, and then we'd be in the singularity, and we'd all be together in the lump. And, probably not remember anything because it's stored there. So there you go. I'd be inside you, you'd be inside me, we'd be none the wiser, and we wouldn't be gay for it. So,
Yeah, not that way, yeah. It'd be more like Star Trek. And what was her name on there? The one with the big knockers. What was her name?
I don't know, man. I never watched Star Trek.
She was a telepath. She was a telepath that could read people's moods and stuff, right? And see what's going on. We'd be like that.
That's awesome.
That's the way to describe somebody. What do you remember about it? I remembered this. I was a kid. That's what I was looking for.
That's it, man. I swear, man. Now that we have we haven't done like a 10,000 subscriber special or anything, I think we need to actually do that and come up with a greatest hits of all the dumb shit that we've said over the last 2 years, man. Because there's been some moments. And honestly, there were some real particularly good moments about 2 years ago when Nathan was on with Ben and Gerald and stuff like that. And I was literally I was watching on my phone and stuff, and I'm at Walmart and I'm like, fucker, send me a link. I need to get in on this. You know what I mean? It was
Mike was talking about the hole in his transformer. He goes, how big was it, Mike? I'm thinking it's this big, right? He goes, no, it's a great big hole like this.
Big hole.
Oh, it's just like hot dogs.
Hot dogs around. I'm telling you, man. We've had some times.
Oh my God, Ben bending over doing that electrical thing, man. As Mike was over there telling him which hole to put it in. That was the absolute best, dude.
Listen, God help me. That man he's a good man. He's a communist, and aside from being a communist, I tried to explain so many fundamental things to him on so many occasions, and then just literally, I was like, Ben, you're doing great.
He's got the most addictive laugh ever, dude. If he starts laughing, the rest of us are laughing.
He's a funny, good dude. He's a funny, good dude.
Oh man!
If I was ever in the position of pardoning a commie from being hung, I would widely consider sparing him.
Oh man, that's terrible, but also funny.
Yes, it is. And everything I say is lighthearted. I wish no harm on anybody, and Ben's a good guy. I'll repeat that until I'm blue in the face.
Oh, just having fun with the guy, yeah. Oh,
Gerald, on the other hand, no, I'm only playing around. We love Gerald too.
Gerald's a good guy, man. I like Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald's a good guy.
So funny as hell too. Cracks me up.
Shit, when he goes on a tear, he really goes on a tear, every cell in his body, there's no room for doubt with him.
No,
no room for doubt. Whatever's coming out of his mouth, he's fully behind. 1,000%.
Oh yeah,
I respect that.
Oh, dude, yeah, fun, good times, man.
Yeah,
the old game.
10,000 subscribers later, and those gentlemen help us. Right along the way, they helped us bump it right on up. So
that's right.
Appreciation where that appreciation is due.
Oh man. Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to have the show and put on some Star Trek episodes while we, eat some wings on 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. All right, so we're gonna set that up, and you know what? We'll post that one days in advance, so everybody can set it aside because I think that's gonna be awesome.
Oh, they get to laugh at me again. I'll take out my dentures, man, and eat a bunch of hot chicken wings and burn my mouth off. So yeah, dude, it's gonna be a fun one.
Right on. I'll even go hotter this time, dude. You down?
Oh, dude, you know how bad it was last time?
No,
Go
no,
hotter. But you give me Satan's pills or Satan's
whatever. Yeah,
breath.
we'll do a little bit of it.
Oh my
I'll, we'll get you order the hot sauce and a box of tampons. You know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
just put it in my mouth and pull the string. There you go. That was so good.
Yeah, there you go. Right on.
Oh.
One of your bleeding holes, you know. Anyway,
It felt like a bleeding hole that day. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
Oh.
Right on.
All right, guys, before we totally lose it, I just want to thank, how do you say that, Joe? Sherish Ozin? Sharizon.
It's Sharice Rosin.
Sharice Rosin. That's right. Sorry.
I
Right
think.
on. Thank you for becoming a member, man. Sorry I can't pronounce the name. Joe got it. I want to thank Papa Bell, man, hooking us up, becoming a member, man.
Right on.
I want to thank Darren, brother. Thank you for the $10, man. I really appreciate it. I want to tell everybody I'm sorry. There's something going on with YouTube. They're doing conversion rates or something on all their stuff that's going on. I didn't understand much of it. So people that don't live in the United States, it changes, certain stickers and stuff like that. And I'm sorry for that. Wasn't something I intended.
That's $10 of upside down people money.
I love it. I like upside down people money.
Right on.
All right, guys. It's been awesome, man. Chat's been awesome, man. You guys did great today. I want to thank Dispatch Man for hanging out in the chat and hooking everybody up. Help Yanni. You guys are awesome moderators, man. You guys take care of the show. Thank you very much. I want to thank Joe for hooking up with us today. Darren, you're awesome, brother. Have a great day, guys.
Peace and love.
The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.